All right, we're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. So go ahead and welcome everybody for coming out tonight. It's May 12th, and the meeting's starting at 6:02 for the record. I'm going to read a quick statement to begin with, and then we'll get going on the agenda. Welcome to the Central Region Advisory Council meeting. This meeting is being held in person at we'll call it the Central Region office here in Springville, Utah. It is also being streamed live on YouTube. This public forum allows you to express your opinions and ideas on wildlife management in our state. This RAC considers your feedback on the proposals before us today and reports them to the Wildlife Board. And this is important. I think people forget. The Wildlife Board, not the RAC, is charged with setting the wildlife policy for our state. We all have ideas and opinions about what is best for Utah's wildlife. It's why we're here today. We encourage those who want to express their opinions to fill out a comment card, these yellow comment cards, and just pass them forward on both sides. We'll go through those on each item. We want you to express your opinions. Sorry. Comments at today's meeting should be focused on the topics listed on the agenda. Unrelated comments will not be heard today and should be sent directly to the Division of Wildlife Resources and board members for consideration at another time. We expect those in attendance to respect the people who speak, especially those who hold views that don't align with your own views. Respectful behavior facilitates efficient meetings where RAC members can listen, digest, and address the concerns, ideas, and proposals being presented. Disrespectful behavior will not be tolerated, and those who engage in it will be asked to leave. And then lastly, please reduce distractions during the meeting by putting your phone on silent. And if you need to take a call, we ask you just step out in the hallway to take a call. All right, with that, we're going to go ahead and do some roll calls here. So we'll start on this end. JT, you want to just do roll call and we'll just go around?
Joshua Kays, representing Sportsman.
Josh Greenhall, representing Sportsman.
Jared Peterson, elected official.
I'll just keep going. Braden Shepard, Agriculture.
Tyson Skeen, Public at Large.
Drew Eline, Forest Service.
Bryce Castanetto at Large.
Kellen Heyer, Agriculture.
Thanks. And then we want to recognize online. We've got a few RAC members online. Dr. Ziegler, want to start? And then Jim.
Sure. John Ziegler, representing Watchable Wildlife.
And Jim Schuler, Watchable Wildlife.
All right. I want to also recognize a few board members. We've got 3 online. Paula Richmond. Actually, we got 4 online. Kent Johnson, Chris Robinson, and Justin Oliver. And then I saw Gary. Gary's here somewhere in the back there. Gary Nielsen. So welcome. Let's see. Let's go ahead and get started. We've got an agenda, so I'd welcome first a motion about the agenda so we can move this meeting forward. So does the agenda work? Has everybody seen it?
I will go ahead to make a agenda to approve the minutes.
And the agenda?
And the agenda.
Okay.
And approve the agenda. We'll do that.
Let's do the agenda. So we'll do the agenda first. Motion.
Okay. Just the agenda.
Just the agenda. Do I get a second? All right. All in favor, say aye. Thanks. And then let's do the minutes now. Kellen, keep us going.
Okay, we'll keep going. Now we'll make a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
That was a motion by Kellen and a second. Second by Drew. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right. Motion passes unanimously, both of those. All right. There was a board meeting. I should have just Gary come up here and give us the board meeting overview. There's quite a few motions on it. But the board meeting happened on April 30th, 2026 up in Farmington. And we just always want to go through what passed at that meeting so you're aware. The first motion that carried was a motion that the division look at reclassifying the Oak Creek unit to be a premium unit during the mid-plan review. And that motion was put on the action log and passed. Then there was a motion made that the board approved the deer permit recommendations for 2026 as presented by the division. That passed unanimously. On the once-in-a-lifetime permits, there was a motion that the board accept the once-in-a-lifetime permit recommendations as presented by the division, with the addition of an archery bison permit on the Book Cliffs, Little Creek, and Book Cliffs, Bitter Creek archery hunts, and that passed, not unanimously, passed 4-2. On the bull elk permits, there was a motion that the board accept the bull elk permit recommendations for the 2026 season as presented by the division, and that passed unanimously. On the pronghorn permits, there was a motion that the pronghorn permit recommendations for 2026 were presented by the division were accepted, and that also passed unanimously. Now we're going to talk about antlerless permits. There was a couple items that went on this one. First motion was a motion to reduce the antlerless moose permits on the Wasatch Mountains and the Salt Lake Timpanogos unit to be 2 permits. And then there's that same motion also asked that the Morgan South Rich unit would be decreased to 8 permits with one hunt removed from each weapon type. That motion was then amended to reduce the Morgan unit from 8 permits to 5, allowing 3 illegal weapon hunts and 2 archery hunts for antlerless moose. And that passed 5-1. Then there was on antlerless still a motion that the remainder of the antlerless permits were passed as recommended. But then that was amended to also add a clause that that the board increase antlerless elk permits on the Monroe unit from 40 to 60. And that passed unanimously. The last couple motions, there was a motion to allow a non-resident to apply for 1 antlerless moose permit on the Morgan South Rich unit. That then passed. And then we get to the CWMU rules. The first one was a motion that the board accept the 2026 CWMU antlerless permit recommendations as presented by the division, with the exception that the Deseret antlerless moose was reduced by 1 public and 1 private permit, and that passed 4 in favor with then 2 recusals. And then the final motion was that the board accept the aquatic rule amendments for the Rule 657-3C and Rule 657-59 as presented by the division, and that passed unanimously. Any questions about all those motions? Okay. All right, Danny, let's have a update.
Hey, I'm Danny Summers, the regional supervisor for the Central Region, and I'm just going to provide a brief update. We were here just a month ago and gave a longer update, but just a couple things that we've got that have happened and going on as we're here into this early summer season this year. Today we just held a great event with a lot of partners at the Salem Pond for, we had about 1,500 kids there, a lot of which are kids with special needs, and it was just, we're able to help these kids catch a fish and have a great experience outdoors. It was really neat. It's my first time to be there, and I really enjoyed it. It was a really good experience, and there's a ton of partners that help make that happen. So really cool thing that happens here in the Central Region. We have a new volunteer service coordinator. That's the person that handles our dedicated hunter projects, and her name is Brinley Jones. She's been with the division for a few years now, and really excited to have her in this position. And our habitat section has some new guzzler projects. They'll be getting all our guzzlers turned on in the West Desert, and then adding some new guzzlers in a few places across the region, in the Tinnix and a couple others. We're also monitoring the drought conditions, the water, and the fish conditions we have here in the region. And just yesterday we had a emergency regulation for the 9 Mile Reservoir, where we liberalized regulations as we anticipate that lake will be drained through the summer season, especially with the small amount of runoff we have this year. And then lastly, just our officers are out busy checking on turkey hunters and fishermen this time of year, and appreciate the work they do. And so that is my update.
Any other questions for Danny? Okay, thanks, Danny. I guess one question, when do you guys start doing the captures for fawns? Is that something that we're still invited to as fawns and calves, or that study?
Yeah, our fawn studies have concluded in our region right now this year, so we don't have any this year. We'll have fall captures for mule deer in November, December.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and get to the first agenda item that has an action tied to it. So a reminder that on these agenda items, there won't be any formal presentations given. That we've watched the presentations, but we'll go ahead and have Heather just give a quick update, a brief kind of high-level overview of your presentation, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Great. So the first agenda item is just for the upland game pitch rule changes and the 3-year guidebook cycle. And with the the pen-reared bird rule changes. It's just that removal of the quarter-mile buffer requirement between CHAs and our existing WMAs to allow them to use the entirety of their property, since we reviewed that and didn't think that it was necessary. And just some other clarifying things in that rule. So everything else is just the same as it has been. So that's the only change.
Yeah, we'll ask questions in a second, Heather, but any other items that we want to know about from a presentation standpoint before we get to formal questions on this one? All right, Danny, Danny will summarize our public comments for us.
So from the online public comment, we only received one response, and it was a strongly agree with the upland game changes. So
now, Heather, we will ask you any questions. So from the RAC, are there, I guess first it's public, I guess, any questions from the public for Heather on this item? Okay, RAC, any questions on this item? It's pretty straightforward. Okay. Is there any public comment here tonight on this item?
no, not on this one.
Anybody anybody want to comment? If not, we'll move on this first item. Okay, I don't see any public comment. All right, let's move it back to the RAC for discussion. And if there's no discussion, John, sorry, I didn't see you there. John, do you have a question?
No question. Just activating my camera, that's all.
Hey, yeah, if you move or like scratch your nose, John, we're going to think it's a question. So
Outstanding, Braden. Duly warned. Thank you.
all right, back to and any other, I guess I'll welcome the RAC to discuss this item. And if not, we'll welcome a motion. Bryce.
Heather, thank you for your presentation. Appreciate all the hard work you put into that. And I just wanted to say thank you to you and to all the other members of the division that put time and effort into upland game. It's something that I enjoy very, very much. I'm very grateful for the opportunities we have in the state. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. It is a really great resource for sure.
I will make a motion to accept the rule changes as presented by the division.
All right, we have a motion by Tyson Skeen to second by Josh. A motion by Tyson and a second by Joshua. Any questions or comments on the motion? All right, I'll welcome a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Heather, come back up. Oh, you're still there. No, just kidding. Tell us about the next item, the wild turkey recommendations. Kind of once again, give us some high level points, remind us.
Absolutely. So the changes that we're making to the turkey rule is just to add mandatory harvest reporting and some, including some minor clarifications. And of course, that also affects the assessment of late fees rule. So we've just also updated that accordingly. And then we also have with the taking of, in the taking turkey rule, we did kind of rename what wild turkey means with some of the discrepancies that existed in the previous language. Then with turkey depredation, we have a monetary compensation that we're going to offer through this recommendation, and as well as allowing nuisance hunts in addition to depredation hunts for certain areas that would be on state parks property. And that could help alleviate some damage issues that wouldn't fit into depredation. Also increasing the control permits for turkey from 2 to 5, and removing the language that prohibits the selling of vouchers and charging of access fees for control permit vouchers. And that would just also allowing multiple landowners to hunt each other's adjacent properties with those permits and vouchers. And that was already vaguely stated in the rule under the buffer section, but we just added some clarity to that. And additionally, the final rule is just adding turkey to the urban deer rule to allow municipalities to trap turkeys and work in conjunction with us when we're stretched thin and unable to get to all of those needs.
All right, let's go ahead and summarize comments, then we'll go back to questions. We actually will do questions from the RAC first and then the public. Sorry, got that order wrong last.
Yeah, the online comment, we just had one response that was in the strongly agree category. And yeah, just appreciated the hunting seasons that are provided by these hunts.
All right, RAC members, are there any questions for Heather on this item?
Heather, I've just got a question in regards to that last item you mentioned, allowing adjacent landowners to hunt each other's property. Last I checked, and if I'm incorrect on this, please feel free to correct me. We don't allow that for big game depredation
They do.
vouchers.
Yep.
They allow that now.
That is in the big game rule. If somebody from big game would like to speak to that, Darren's here tonight, but we actually emulated the verbiage from the big game rule to put into the turkey rule for a collection of landowners to be able to hunt each other's property. I have a form from this northern region that sent me as an example of a landowner applying for this in writing, because they do have to apply for it in writing and every landowner has to sign on.
So is that's landowners applying as a group, but like, does this rule only allow if they apply as a group, or does this, if you have land and I have land and we've applied individually, I can now hunt your land, you can now hunt my land?
There is no applying individually. So this is, unfortunately, I think that one of the issues with an assemblage of landowners being able to hunt adjacent properties is only so that they're issued a certain amount of vouchers, and it's just to be able to move the turkeys off those properties entirely or harvest the offending birds, not so that they're not just moving from landowner A to landowner B and pushing them around. But there's nothing about this is a landowner association or a CWMU. And I think that's where things get a little bit conflated. So would anybody like Darren to come up and speak to the difference between the two programs? Okay.
Welcome, Darren.
She really wants me to say something. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think, so this isn't a form. What we've done with big game is that, for example, if you have several adjacent landowners, you've got elk coming down and they hunt them on one property and bounce them. We'll work with those landowners to set up just an agreement. So again, it's a signed document. They all have like an understanding that, yeah, you know, I'll get some, you get some, and if the elk are on me, your guys can come on me. So it takes a little bit of legwork by the biologist. It's not a formal program like CWMU or LOA is. So I hope that clarifies how it works. And so I assume that's how we do it for turkeys.
Heather, maybe on the last item, that the municipalities helping out, like what control measures will be put in place before like a city can say, hey, I'm going to start trapping turkeys? Like, is there some kind of, like, remind us of that process that needs to go through before it just becomes a municipality dealing with it? So kind of get us to that point.
And I hate to keep punting to Darren, but he can speak to that as well. But like right now with the urban deer program, the municipalities could call us. It would be the same thing, calling to request help with trapping turkeys. And maybe all of our technicians have all of their time filled up currently with other areas. So we could go help them, show them how to set up the trap. They would do the baiting and everything. And then we would just show them how to set the trap. They would be in coordination with us when they do that. So that way we know the morning that we need to go out there while they're trapping birds, and they would give us all the birds for us to translocate. So it's just a lot of times with far distances, baiting the trap is the most labor intensive portion of that. And we would be able to offer that expertise for that. But if you need want to know how it works with deer, Darren's here too.
So along those same, along those same lines, so is there like, I mean, for instance, I'm very involved with the urban deer in our area, and but my understanding is this would be a relocate, no lethal option.
No lethal option. And the cities themselves wouldn't even be relocating it. And it, just like with the urban deer program, they would get a certificate of registration that has all of those different facets laid out in writing to them. And so, and of course we don't charge for that. We just, make sure that we have something in writing, and we just agree upon trapping dates and make sure that they have the tools they need.
So timeframes would be set, that sort of
Sure.
thing by you guys. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And I don't know if like comments that way. I mean, I can hear it now. Like, why do you allow relocating for one species and not the other? I mean, I know with the urban deer with chronic wasting and stuff, there's no option to relocate. So I guess education would be good to be pushing to the municipalities that are already participating, because those questions will come up, and I think it'd be good to have the numbers or research to be able to, push people to, reference.
And we do a lot of intrastate translocations every year. Last year was the lowest we've had in years, with only 607 turkeys translocated. Again, we would take care of all the actual translocation. They would just be trapping the birds, and then we'd get them from them. But to your point of why we translocate turkeys, it has been shown to be highly effective. We haven't had any deleterious impacts from that yet. And we can definitely go into like trapping and translocation data as well if you're interested, but just
I think
yeah.
the reason why, we have to remove the deer, not relocate it.
Versus relocate.
Yeah, species to species,
Sure.
that needs to be defined so
Sure.
that, so we can educate people when the question comes up.
Yeah, that's fair. Yep.
Heather, would you mind just kind of explaining the difference between nuisance and depredation? It just seems like those are two different categories, and just like a little clarification there, if that's okay.
Right. So right now with the depredation hunt or pool hunts that are instituted, for example, that's for damage to cleared, planted, mechanically harvested, irrigated lands. And what's happened is there's become an issue with a situation in a state park where it doesn't meet that situation, but there is material damage being occurring from turkeys. And so in order to mitigate that, we just wanted to open up a nuisance hunt as well. But all of the mechanics would be the same. So the same way that people would apply for a depredation hunter pool hunt, they'd apply for the nuisance hunt, and then we turn over the names, and people can get called as opportunities arise to harvest to be able to get those permits.
Any other questions from the RAC? All right, public, any questions for Heather on this agenda item specifically? No, I don't see any. Let's go ahead and do this. We'll go ahead and just turn it over to public comment, and then we'll come back to the RAC for any other comment and discussion. So first card, I've got Waylon Pritchett. A reminder on the public comment, Waylon, 3 minutes, state your name for the record, and 3 minutes. And then following Waylon, we'll have Troy Henry.
Waylon Pritchett, KWD Adventures. Like to start out by, first of all, giving a big thank you to the Central Region DNR for all their help today, the Kids Fishing Day. You guys are a crucial partner. This event would not be possible at all without you guys and your help and support on that. So big thank you. KWD Adventures, we support the mandatory harvest reporting of wild turkeys. We know that they are upland game, but they're not technically managed like upland game. We have limited entry seasons, limited entry tags. That mandatory harvest reporting will be very crucial in helping to litigate tag numbers, control tag numbers, such as like what is being done with big game. We support the monetary compensation for landowners. We believe that here in Utah, there's a lot of regions where turkeys are simply coming down from public lands, wintering on private lands, and then returning to those public lands. Working with these landowners will be very crucial to help incentivize having these turkeys in their stopover places for the winter, and then returning to public lands where they can be hunted by the general public. We support the urban turkey program. We see the success in that, being able to trap these birds, relocate them, take them out of areas where they're not accessible to the public, and relocating them to areas where they can be accessed by the public and they can be utilized. Thank you for your time. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Waylon. Troy? Following Troy, we'll have another Troy Justinson.
Troy Henry with the Utah Farm Bureau. Thanks for the opportunity. At Farm Bureau, Utah ag mostly consists around livestock and hay production. And the two complaints that we hear over and over are elk damage and turkey damage. And we really appreciate Heather and the DWR working on this. We feel like the recommendations hit the right note with mirroring the deer, the tools that are out there for deer depredation. They're programs that have worked in the past. And you know what? Livestock producers automatically assume some of the responsibility for feeding livestock, but it shouldn't all be on them. And when it becomes a financial hardship, we appreciate that there are programs out there to help bring this together. The other thing we like about this program is the selling of vouchers provides public opportunity. It's not just most of the ranchers out there aren't real excited about shooting turkeys, but the public gets that opportunity, and it's a win-win for all. So we appreciate it. Farm Bureau supports these recommendations, and we urge the RAC to support them too. Thanks.
Thanks, Troy. And Troy.
Good evening. Troy Justin, Sports and Fish and Wildlife. We support the division's recommendations as proposed. Like you heard prior to this, we really support the monetary thing, amongst these landowners. When you turn something into an asset that's valuable to them, a lot of times it creates more tolerance and even encourages people to branch out more and maybe get in a little bit more turkey habitat. So we wholeheartedly support the recommendations. So thank you.
Thank you, Troy. All right, let's bring it back to the RAC for more comments and discussions and any additional questions you may have for Heather. So RAC members, what are your thoughts on this recommendation? Any comments? And let's just discuss it.
Yeah, I've got some. I just don't see the difference between this and SCWMU. We're allowing landowners to sell tags. It just seems like a easy CWMU process to me for turkeys. I just don't think we should put monetary value on wildlife in general, but now we're doing it to turkeys. That's going to create them wanting the turkeys there if they can sell a turkey tag for $500 and possibly doing stuff to keep the turkeys there.
May I comment? Thank you.
Yeah.
And so that is a very valid concern, of course. And so something that's not part of the RAC packet, because it's not a rule change, because it's something that can just be done internally, is right now vouchers are either sex. And we plan, if the recommendation to sell vouchers were to pass, we would plan for our depredation teams to allocate those vouchers based on the sex that they're seeing on the property. So if there's 102 birds and 100 are hens and 2 are jakes, they can only get up to 10% or 15 maximum vouchers, and they would just get the 10 beardless vouchers. And so we could see that if there were a couple of big toms on a property and we left the vouchers as either sex, that would be problematic, and people could be encouraged to do that. But I don't see that as being as big of an issue if, as intended with fall harvest, we're looking to reduce populations in those conflict areas, which is why we're targeting beardless birds. So we don't think that'll be as much of an issue that way. And if you do want to talk about more of the idiosyncrasies with CWMUs and LOAs, I can have Darren come back because he loves it.
Thanks, Josh. Other comments or? JT.
So,
I'd say JT and Josh.
Yeah,
Be doing,
it's easier.
Yeah, it's
that
easier.
way. Who does the work to decide what the population is and what the percentages of those tags that would be given? Is that the biologist?
Right. So it's the depredation technicians, biologists, district biologists, whoever goes out to count the offending animals. So it's not necessarily a population, but it's the percentage of offending animals. So they can only get 10% with a max of 15 vouchers of whatever the offending animals are on the property.
And then is there a season or a timeline to that? Or
Yes.
is it, okay.
Yes, that's August 1st through March 14th.
Okay.
So they have a pretty long time. And the reason for that, of course, is because damage might occur at different times. Weather patterns might change. We might get early winter, late winter, no winter. So we want to have that availability, that flexibility there.
So none of the vouchers would be active during April, May?
No, definitely not.
Okay. I think
That's-
that deserves some clarification, maybe. I think NW or the National Wild Turkey sent something, but it was like last minute. So I don't know if everybody's seen that. But I
They
think
did.
their concern was that it was going to turn more like a CWMU type of system where, you know, during April and May, you were selling like premium turkey hunting opportunities or whatever. And then I think that would create a system where, you know, you'd have to do a lot of policing. I feel like, because a lot of the birds are already on that ground or adjacent to it.
I believe that with the internal conversations that we have conducted, that is very clear in their minds that this is for fall depredation, like control, not depredation, but they're called control permit vouchers only, which would only be in the fall. But that warrants a greater discussion to clarify here for sure. So yeah, those season dates are set just for the fall season. This has nothing to do with spring hunting. And we just want to make sure that that is very clear. And that the whole goal of the fall hunt, again, is to manage populations, which is why we renamed it to the Fall Management Harvest.
Heather, remind me on this, on the deer, when we did the depredation for deer rule, we had put the landowner or their lessee. Did you guys include the leaseholder? So if I'm a landowner that's kind of absentee and I've got a leaseholder who's actually farming and doing all the farming, can they then be the ones that sell the vouchers? Just remind me.
I believe that is exactly the same, but hang on one second and I'm going to double check just in case for fun. But
I usually have the rule in front of me. I brought the memos
oh,
today.
you're fine. I can easily do a quick search. But that's always how it's been. Yeah, landowner or lessee is reiterated over and over in the turkey rule as well.
Okay, great. And yeah, Josh, I think to your point too, like I had the same thoughts when I first heard this, like, oh, this is going to create another CWMU. But then when I saw it was a fall program, I feel like a lot of landowners I talk to, they're almost just tolerating the birds in the fall. And so anything we can do to kind of help those landowners tolerate them and not move them out or get rid of those birds in that area could be really helpful. So.
Right. And to speak to some of the earlier comments, we do want to make it known that we do obviously prioritize trapping, and NWTF has been great partners in the fact that they've funded with ECP dollars 2 full-time trappers, one in the central and one in the northern region for the last few years. And we keep very busy trying to trap, but it's really hard when we don't get snow. So when food's available everywhere, it's hard to bait them into a trap for sure. And yeah, we just want to make sure that let people know that we do prioritize that. And then some of those turkeys that are wintering on private are on public, but keeping in mind too that some turkeys are bad turkeys, as they call them, in residence and will be on private lands all year. And so we don't want to keep, that's not adding to the public population of huntable turkeys anyway.
Yeah, I think that, I can't remember who made the comment. They said the turkeys come down in the winter, right? And so my concern is that this will harvest more turkeys that are there in the winter, but they're going back up onto public land that are accessible for everybody to hunt. And then something else I just kind of want everybody to consider is that they are implementing other measures. So do we need to do all of them at one time, or could we, maybe hold off on allowing them to sell turkey tags and see if the other measures work first?
You want me to address
Go ahead,
that?
go.
I mean, our recommendations are as they stand. And so if of course, if the RAC would like to make any changes, absolutely vote how you see fit. And I didn't know if just the clarification on the letter was essentially just the disagreeing with landowners hunting each other's properties and the sale of vouchers. And so just to clarify that.
All right. Other discussion, Bryce.
I do have some more questions if that's okay. One, Heather, are there specific areas or landowners that are having more issues than others? Or is this more of a broad sweeping attempt to control these issues?
So some people may have remembered back in 2023 that we really tried to pare back all of our fall boundaries. And we did that to the best of our ability because we want it to be as small and surgical as possible. But understanding that along us in the central region, the boundary is still along like the north to south along that corridor at I-15. And that's because if you were to draw a buffer around each of those properties with the issues, they all connect. And so we do understand wanting to have that targeted, limited surgical boundaries at the same time, where that we have them as much more restricted than we have. And that's the reason, is because we're trying to just target the problem birds. But yeah, the entire boundary encompasses the problem birds for sure.
All right, other thoughts or discussion on this item?
Yeah, discussion, I would say the fall turkey tags have been in place for years, right? Do you guys have success rates on those? Are those making an impact? And is it, if we were, obviously you feel the need that if we kept it as it is, it's not helping at the rate that we'd hoped.
I think that it just depends on the year and what's going on. But I also think that as is right now, we don't have nearly as many tools in the toolbox to help with turkey issues for private landowners. And we're trying to build that tolerance so that we can keep turkeys successfully in Utah. And so to that point of growing populations in other areas of the state or private lands that love the turkeys and don't mind them, they have that refugia. But to try to remove a problem, we just don't have quite enough tools in the toolbox at this point. But was there a certain, sorry, you wanted to look at fall success rates?
I think the fact that we are trying to adopt this new model tells me everything I need to know, that
Sure.
they're not working quite like we'd hoped. Right. So, I mean, this discussion has given me less heartburn about the whole thing than where I was in the beginning. So I feel like it's been vetted. I think that they've done their homework and it looks good to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think that like hearing the parameters that would happen around it. So mine's kind of a logistical question for our recommendation. Would we have to clarify all of that in the recommendation, or how are we sure that all of that happens? I think it being in the fall, somebody, a biologist or a division employee gets to do a population estimate, gets to provide those tags from a management perspective of what the population could take. You know, that makes me feel good about all that stuff. I just don't know. I can't remember from the presentation if all that's baked in or if we would have to add that to our recommendation to vote on, I guess. I don't know. Do you see what the question I have?
Yeah, I think I think JT, when I look at the rule, it's in there. It's a fall hunt. It's in the plan and the rule. So I think it's there, the protections. But if you want to clarify that, we want to make sure this all applies just to a fall hunt, and you could say that in the motion too. But yeah.
Related, and maybe I should know, but if we pass the mandatory turkey reporting, harvest reporting, would that also apply to these tags?
That only applies to the spring and the fall, but not to control vouchers and any of the control permits or vouchers.
I did think that was kind of like, just have everybody report. If we're all going to report, just report, but.
Right. And so we kept it aligned with big game.
Yeah.
And the thought there too was just if somebody's already taking the measures to kind of rectify their own issue and try to solve a problem, we didn't also want to penalize them on top of it if something were to happen.
Yeah, I kind of thought this was like when I looked at the program, I liked that there's this nuisance hunt. I was like, oh, I could get a nuisance hunter tag, like there's some different pools that there is some different, once again, tools as a hunter to participate in. I don't know how I'd feel, on hunting a nuisance turkey. Like, are they going to like walk up to me? Do they know me? Like, oh, it's the landowner. I don't know. I have no idea. But I thought that the tools here were pretty good. It's just a lot of tools in the toolbox you can use to manage turkeys. So I got Bryce over here giving me these faces now. I should So anyway, I'd welcome a motion if we're ready. If not, if we want to keep discussing it, we can. But I'd welcome a motion on this item too. They're quiet tonight, right?
I'll make a motion that we pass as presented.
Okay, I got a motion by Bryce. Is there a second?
Second by Kellen.
Second by Kellen. So motion by Bryce that we accept as presented, seconded by Kellen. Let's have some discussion on that motion, questions. So Josh, you're going to make a motion too. Do you want to,
I was going to make a motion that we accept as recommended, except for the 657, 697, the part where they're selling the tags.
So I guess the question is, we have a motion and a second. Any desire to amend? Otherwise, we can vote on that and go from there. Don't amend. So Bryce, you want to proceed with your motion? Okay, and Kellen, second. All right, we got a motion and a second, so let's go ahead and call the vote. All those in favor say aye. 5 and then 6, 7. So 7 in favor, and then those opposed? And 2 opposed. So 7 in favor, 2 opposed. The motion passes. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Heather. All right, I got to find my agenda again. There we go. Let's go to item number 7 on the agenda. Darren, if you'd like to come up and just give us a brief overview again.
And okay. Yes. So what we're talking about tonight are public lands that are included in CWMU applications. So order operations here are every 3 years, a CWMU has to renew their COR, their certificate of registration. And when that comes up, if they have public lands that are going to include or want to include public lands in their CWMU, we do a few things. First thing, we take all of these to the CWMU Advisory Council. And as I mentioned in my presentation, they spent about 3 hours going through all these maps. I don't know if I gave you a lot of homework, so hopefully you got what you needed out of all those resources. So just really the bottom line is most of these are CWMUs that are up for renewal that aren't really changing anything. They've been approved maps in the past with a couple of exceptions. And so I'm prepared tonight to, we can get into detail if we want to. Just whatever you want. Happy to answer questions or whatever you need.
We'll probably have some questions for you, but let's go ahead and summarize public comment and we'll go from there. So,
Yeah, we got 5 comments on this one. They all strongly agreed with the proposal. On theirs, all the comments talked about the value and the worth of the CWMU program.
all right, questions for Darren. Does anyone, if we want to see the maps, it sounds like Darren's prepared if we need to see him again, but questions there for Darren. Yep, questions already. Yep, from the RAC.
So Darren, I'm going to give you a chance to educate me a little bit better.
Sure.
I like being educated. So, and you and I have talked in the past, I'm a supporter of the CWMU program. I like the program personally. But there has always been this sticking point of public lands that has always bothered me a little bit. And as I talk to other hunters and the public, that's something that I think that bothers people probably more than anything else is why are we including public lands, particularly public lands that are accessible. Like it makes sense if there's a chunk in the middle and nobody can get to it. But in a lot of these CWMUs, they're actually accessible public lands. So why are we including them? I recently had a conversation with somebody who actually helped me understand this a lot better, but I think the public maybe misunderstands the benefit. So even in your presentation, you talk about like this CWMU, this many acres, it's 2%. But help us understand what that 2% means.
Yeah.
Okay. So that the public can hear that there's actually a benefit going on here. It's not just a benefit to the landowner.
I appreciate that opportunity. So we agree. Normally, we wouldn't want to include public lands within it. And remember, CWMU is essentially a hunt boundary, like any other hunt boundary. And so if public land were included within that boundary, it's only for the purposes of a particular license. So if they're a deer-only CWMU, that public land, all it means is you have to have that tag to hunt that public land for a deer. Other than that, all other public activities can happen on that ground. Having said that, we still try not to include public lands in CWMUs whenever possible. There are three reasons in rule why that might be, why you might consider. One is if it's landlocked, there's no public access, it's completely surrounded by private land, and so we may consider under those circumstances. The other would be if it is necessary to make a definable boundary, a road, fence line, something like that, that the public on the ground easily identify, we'll consider it for those reasons potentially. There's a third reason, that if the public land's necessary to meet management objectives for the CWMU. I don't know that we ever really used that as a reason. It might be, but it'd be rare. So it's usually the first two. If we do consider it for one of those two reasons, then there are several ways the CWMU can compensate the public for including that public land within that hunt boundary. Often what we do is just a simple calculation. What's the percentage of public land compared to the private land? And then we do the math on that, and based on the number of tags that they're getting overall, the public would get some extra opportunity, an extra tag. And that just depends on how much of it is public, how many tags they have, and simple math. Another way they can do it, and the way several of them have done it in this presentation, is to offer up trade lands. So private lands then become open to the public for hunting purposes, in lieu of the public land being included in the CWMU. And what we want to look at there is it comparable? Is that public land that they're incorporating in their hunt boundary comparable to their private land they're allowing access? In addition, we changed the rule recently that requires them to post that open. And the CWMU Association has designed a sign. It's a green sign that basically says, this is a CWMU trade land. It is open for access for these reasons. It's usually for big game hunting. So exactly. There are some instances where, in northwestern Utah, where all that checkerboard stuff is, where we're trying to draw a definable boundary, where we're actually doing walk-in access in lieu of, and not paying them for the walk-in access. But in those cases, they often allow other activities beyond big game. So you can access those private lands for upland game hunting, and stuff like other activities. So we always try to make some kind of compensation. And in this case, and in our discussion with the CWMU Advisory Committee, there were a few that they tweaked. They came in, there was one in Southern Region that they said, they hadn't traditionally offered an additional tag just because it's been that way for 30 years, 20 years. And the committee said, well, we'd feel better if they included, if they offered a tag instead. So they'll correct it. That's why we take it to the CWMU Advisory Committee. The other reason we do it is that they can get in the weeds on these. They can look at the map. Why is that included? And go through all that stuff. And so, I was there in person. I've listened to it a couple of times. So I've enjoyed it a few times, that meeting, just to make sure I could answer questions. So hopefully that's a good summary then.
Yeah, I think so. I think the more information people have, the better, because if there's not, they're just assume.
Right.
Better touch that, right? And the challenge is we usually assume the worst.
Right.
As people. It's just human nature, right? We're not going to assume the best. We're going to assume the worst. And that leads to a lot of frustration. And so I think the more open we can be about these processes, talking about them, letting the public know that there is benefit here. There is a rhyme or reason. We're not just trying to hand private land or public lands over to private landowners. I think that's important. I still do understand the frustration, but I think that
we're mindful of that too. And again, that's why we spend the time in a separate meeting to really get in the weeds. And if people are concerned, that's a public meeting. People, and it's on our web page, on our YouTube page. If someone really wants to spend the time, you can kind of see how those discussions go. And it's not a free ride, so they need to explain why they want to do it. Yeah.
Can you explain the trade land and how does the general public know that I can access this private property without driving to it and seeing a blue or green sign?
So those are on our website. There are maps on our website of trade lands. You could search our site just for CWMU trade lands, and you can find those maps. And again, they now need to post those on the ground, and that'd be standard posting for like a trespass. So corners, crossing points, waterways would have to be posted open, and it'll have I wish I had an example of the sign. It's a green sign, but it basically says CW trade land. It's open to the public for big game hunting, and it is just big game. But often these landowners will allow other access just depends on the CWMU. That information's on our website.
Okay, as far as like, what if I'm using Onyx? Can I see anything like
I
that?
thought of that. I don't know that Onyx puts that on there or not, to be honest. They usually try to grab a lot of that stuff, but I don't know that they do.
I would assume that would be really difficult for Onyx to do because they're just pulling county records, right?
They pull our shape file, so they'll
Do
have
they?
CWMU boundaries and stuff, so
They do it
they
for
may
walk-in
just not be
access.
aware of it. If anybody knows anybody at Onyx, it's mentioned.
Yeah, our habitat section works with Onyx to update those things, and
That's something we could
I
talk about
think-
internally.
yeah, I think we should be able to
Maybe
do that.
I think that'd be a great idea.
I got a comment. So I mean, I think that's important. The majority of sportsmen live on Onyx at this point. All the other states do it, whether it's block management, access, yes, walk-in, whatever they all call them. They're always on the app. It's a layer you can add, and I think that would be a huge advantage. And then just in general, so after watching your presentation, I realized I didn't really know a lot of that happened. So I kind of went down the rabbit hole a little bit and watched some of the 3-hour. And even in that, it was difficult. Like you had to pause. You had to try to then, reference the map. And I don't really know that much about it. I did talk to a few people. One friend that lives near Morgan, so his life revolves around trying to dodge CWMUs, basically. And he had some heartburn with it because of he felt like some of the things that had been done cut off access or made access incredibly difficult. And then some of the traded lands were useless. And so there was some heartburn there, but to be honest, without spending a lot of time, I wouldn't know. I'd have to be on that advisory council to weigh in.
Yeah, and they do ask, what's the value of this? Is this comparable, or is this just, salt flat out there that nobody is going to want to hunt? And that we come prepared to, and we look at it too. I mean, we won't recommend that kind of stuff. So if they want to include it, we're going to say no.
Any other questions for Darren? Then in the public, anybody here in the public have any questions for Darren about trade lands? Okay, let's do this. I don't see any public comment cards. Danny, anybody in the audience want to comment? Otherwise, we'll keep it moving. All right, move it back to the rack for discussion and any other clarifying comments or questions.
I want to be guilty of just assuming the worst, like Tyson said. So I think I would have to probably trust the process because I wouldn't know otherwise.
And I don't want to be repetitive, but I have been one that has really been bothered by this in the past. And I think, like I said, had a conversation this week with somebody very involved in the process. He explained how it works with theirs, and it actually made sense. For the first time, I wasn't kind of ticked off about it. I was kind of like, I still don't love it, but it doesn't, I'm not mad about it anymore, right? So that's kind of where I am, is if it's been vetted through all these things, I'll probably say it's good.
Yeah, and I think that, JT, go ahead. No, I think that feedback about, getting it to the mapping, it might already be there, right? I can't see it, but I think every year that comes up, right? Like, can we have better maps? At one point it's on the hunt planner. So I think as many places you can get the information out to, the better, right? But I think it's still a good process.
Yeah, that was just my concern. Is one of them was, I think, 1,400 acres, and they traded 1,200 acres. So we kind of lost on that deal anyway. And then, I don't even know where that 1,200 acres is that I could go to. So that if we could get that more in the open, more available, I guess.
Quick point too. Normally, if there's a deficit, then they still have to look at the calculation for an additional permit. So if it's not acre for acre or more than what they're including, then we'd also look at an additional permit. So we try to level it if we can.
Yeah.
But your point about not being able to find it is a good one. I appreciate that.
And I guess it'd be a question, how many acres is a deer worth or an elk worth? When you said, there was differences, so they gave more tags out to the public. How do you calculate that?
Yeah, the way we calculate whether they get an additional permit is strictly acreage based. So it's how many acres are public that you're including and how many private acres are you, and whatever percentage that is, you give an additional tag. And sometimes that works out to one every 3 years. Sometimes that's like Deseret gives multiple every year, bull and buck tags, which is quite an opportunity to hunt Deseret as just off a draw. So yeah.
Is that the same ratio of logic that you use to allocate the tags for the CWMU? Like the population levels at a certain amount, we're recommending this many
So
tags?
we'll take into population levels, habitat quality, and it's kind of a negotiation between us and the landowner. What makes sense biologically? What are they after? But ultimately, the biologist will make a recommendation. If we can't come to an agreement, then we can do a split, and we'll bring it to you separately. And we're not afraid to do that. We try to work it out. But yeah, and then of course there's the 90-10 or whatever ratio they pick. They get to pick that.
All right, discussion. RAC, where are you guys at on this item? Are we kind of, what are your thoughts? Just real quick before we get to a motion, where's the RAC at? Yeah, I know where Tyson's at. Are we good to move for a motion? I don't want to cut the process if we're not ready. All right, I'll welcome a motion. Tyson.
I'll make the motion to pass as presented by the division.
All right, there's a motion by Tyson to pass as presented. A second?
I'll second.
And a second by Bryce. Any more comments or discussion on the motion? JT?
I would just recommend that we ask the Habitat guys to try to get those maps to Onyx each year so that we can access that ground that, that's been traded for, or be aware of it.
So Tyson, are you okay if we amend your motion to pass as presented with the additional guidance to ask the Habitat folks to get the maps?
The trade land's more visible or something of that matter?
Absolutely. I actually was just on my phone trying to pull that map up, and maybe it's just my eyes are bad. So I need to get it on a
That's
bigger
probably a
screen.
really good action item for the board, and I wouldn't lay it on the Habitat, but I'll definitely work with them and try and see if we can pull that off. Makes sense.
Okay, so we got a motion. Bryce is shaking his head yes, that he's okay with the amendment. So the motion is that we go with the recommendation as presented with that additional guidance to make the maps more visible to the public. With that, I'll welcome a vote. All those in favor, say aye, raise your hand. Passes unanimously. 9, I think, is it 9 total? Yeah, 9-0. Okay. All right, Chad Wilson on item number 8. Compensation for mountain lion, bear, wolf, or eagle damage.
Yeah, this is a pretty short presentation. So essentially it's to change the rule just in two different ways. One is to allow the division to designate who can submit a proof of loss form. And then if there's any disputes on anything, that it designates who sits on the panel for those disputes.
All right, let's go ahead and do Danny, if you want to give us a summary of any public comments.
Yeah, we had 3 responses. One somewhat agreed, one was neutral, and one was strongly disagreed with the proposal. There was one where a written comment where they, just felt like we shouldn't be euthanizing animals and want to see more evidence, good trail camera footage and for compensation, things like that.
Great. All right, let's go ahead and have any questions from the RAC. So any questions we have for Chad from the RAC? Josh?
I know you said that you would designate certain landowners or people to conduct an investigation, essentially, right? Is there going to be any kind of training involved with that, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we've already been working on a form to do this, and they're testing it right now. So yeah, there'll be a training for anybody who's going to do that, to document it. As in reality, if they don't document it well, then we're probably, if it's inconclusive, then we're not going to pay. Right? So it'd be in their interest to document it well. But yes, there would be training.
And John, you scratched your nose, John, so you're up.
That I did. Thank you for noticing. I appreciate it. Chad, I got a couple questions for you. This is basically procedural regarding depredation compensation. What is the current typical reimbursement for depredated livestock relative to market value?
repeat that.
What is the current typical reimbursement for depredated livestock relative to market value?
So the questions are, yeah, where are you at on the market? Are you paying full market value or some? Yeah.
Yeah, we get the market value and we pay for that.
Okay. Is it correct that in order for reimbursement to be paid, a state authorized trapper must be sent to remove the predator?
They have to go and verify that the predator does not have to be removed, but they go verify what it was that killed the livestock.
Okay. So the trapper would determine the type of animal responsible for the depredation.
Yeah.
Does the trapper need to visualize the remains of every animal for which compensation is paid?
Right now, depending on if they meet certain criteria, they're able to get 3 times the amount of what was. So if they find one cougar kill, then they could get 3 for that one.
Okay, so they don't have to find the remains of each animal that compensation is paid for.
Correct.
Is there a rancher education program to make sure there's no unsecured livestock to reduce depredation? In other words, is there a prevention program in place?
So I'm not sure what is done on the ranching side, but for us, they have to have, for them to get 3 times the amount, they have to have a guardian animal. They have to have daily contact. So there are some requirements that we require for them to get the three times, or I shouldn't even say us. I think that's in law now.
Got it. What defines a protected species?
So what we're talking here is in this rule, it's mountain lion, bear, wolf, or eagle is what we'd pay damage on.
Right. What's the definition of a protected species, though?
I guess the state designates what is protected and what's not. I don't know if we have a definition of like saying this is it, but we do designate whether it's protected or not.
Right. I mean, just the name protected species makes one think that the state goes out of their way to protect, literally safeguard that species. So is it correct that if mountain lions were not a protected species, then ranchers would not get reimbursement for mountain lion depredation losses?
Yeah, I don't know that I know the answer to that, but I would say not. Coyotes are not protected and they don't reimburse for that, so I would think not.
Okay. So Chad, again, I very much appreciate your answering these questions. It's an education for me. So mountain lions are a protected species, but yet being defined as a protected species, does that get them any protection?
I guess what is the direct question there?
Well, the direct question really is are they a protected species in name only? Because right now, with HB 469 in place and the predator management study in place, it's hard to interpret the term protected species when they're being intentionally targeted for eradication in 6 units. And the HB 469 removes all oversight by the DWR. So I'm just asking a simple question.
Yeah.
What is the protected species in the eyes of the DWR in the state of Utah?
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. Helped me know where you're going with that. Yeah, like I think the reason why we can have a year-round hunting on mountain lions with unlimited is that we feel confident that we won't ever get to a cougar population that makes it so they can't continue on in the future, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I think there's some other species in the state that we hunt that don't have a bag limit. You can just, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm trying to think if there's potentially other species that you can do that. But because we don't think it would ever get to that point, I mean, they were hunted very hard in the past and not beyond hunting, they were sought even more to be taken off the landscape than what they are now, and it didn't happen.
No, I understand. I guess my point is that calling a mountain lion a protected species seems like a misnomer.
John, I like that. for the comment part. Let's keep that on the comment side. Any other questions you have, John, on the question side first?
Not at all. I want to tell Chad I appreciate the dialogue.
Also, just a comment, John should be an attorney. That was, I feel like that was, John, doctor was the wrong call. Well, we're still doctors as attorneys, just, yeah, anyway. Well, debatable. Okay, let's. No, sorry, John, that was probably offensive to say that we're doctors as attorneys, so I apologize.
Really, come on, Brandon, give me a break, man.
We're the OG doctors, so we better stop. All right, let's go. Other questions for Chad?
So I've got a quick question. So obviously I'm representing sportsmen, but I had an opportunity to live 2 summers on a ranch, and I saw the issues that came up with depredation, and they would call, and it had to be the trapper, and the trapper wasn't close and wouldn't get there. And then, and then the evidence was washed away, and I saw the frustration there. And so I like the idea of making more people available to make that call. It was just a little vague maybe in the presentation. So I think the question is, like, maybe you could shine some more light on who those qualified people would be that would go make that determination or that could respond quicker.
Yeah, mostly we're looking at producers or their agents. So in reality, the person that's going to be there first that's who's going to be able to collect the best evidence, right?
Yeah. And so I think just a follow up to that, because I've also seen the other side of this where, we happened on a scene that had to do with sheep, and it was kind of like no one was around, and where the sheep were left overnight, it's almost like, I don't know. And so then they're there, nobody gets to interpret that data, and they could say, hey, we've got 10 sheep. And now all of a sudden we have the burden for that when it didn't qualify. So, it's hard because it's like you just want to believe the best and that everybody's going to run it right. But without a third party investigation, it seems hard to prove.
And the question is, isn't that right? At the end.
Yeah, and I think we're confident with, the videos and pictures that are submitted, and then we'll look at it too. It'll get reviewed, so there'll be multiple eyes on it. It's not just taking a producer at their word for it. So we're confident that this would work.
Before we do other questions, I do want to recognize that our chair, Brock McMillan, just entered the room. But I'll continue to conduct the meeting, and Brock will be a voting member today.
Just to follow up to that. So, and I think you said this or at least alluded to it in your presentation, but just make sure. So if they don't take quality pictures, if they don't have enough evidence, you guys are just going to say, no, this is denied. It's not just an automatic.
Yeah. I think and we'd have a group of people, right? We'd all be looking at it. But if it's like inconclusive, then chances are that we're going to say, yeah, we can't say that this was killed by a cougar or bear or whatnot. And then that goes into, they could dispute it and bring it back. And then it'd be a further discussion at that point.
Let's see. Amos has a question. Amos, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna question. What about are these pertaining to public lands, or is that areas that are like open range? Because I kind of recognize some of the you're talking about cows and sheep and everything else in open range. Where they get damaged by vehicles, but are not reported. But then when you finally come upon the animal, those animals that you have identified, mountain lions, coyotes, eagles, and everything, they're all feasting on these animals. So how do you identify those, or does this section just specifies a specific area? That's just my question.
Yeah, so it can be for public or private land. And I think one of the considerations would be the proximity to roads. I think with probably all of this is we're probably not going to bat 1,000 on it. We're going to miss some both ways. There's probably going to be some livestock, some sheep or whatever that are taken by cougars or bears that we never see. And there's potential that there might be some that, yeah, maybe they were just scavenged on by one of those. So but I think it is the best that we can do.
Thanks, Rack. Any other questions for Chad? All right, from the public, any questions for Chad from the public? If you have any questions, come up here and address Chad at the podium. All right, let's move to public comment. Danny, you have any public comment cards? Anybody in the public want to comment on this item? Okay, seeing no public comment, we'll come back to the RAC. RAC members, let's go ahead and discuss and comment any other ideas or go from there.
So, when I watched it, I didn't see, it was real clear that if the rancher or somebody, had insurance on the animal, I don't know if there's a double check, so there could be a double take. I didn't see that in there. So
Chad, can they double dip? Can they like get an insurance claim and then bring a depredation claim? Like a rancher, if he's got insured animals?
We would try to avoid that. I don't know if, I guess I don't know much about the insurance end. Do you, Darren?
Yeah, that's something we wouldn't even look at. So they're entitled to compensation under statute for wildlife damage, and then what they do on their end is up to them.
I apologize if I missed it, but is there any change between public or private land if the event happens on private ground, or if it happens on public, like a grazing allotment?
No, like we treat those the same on this one, in this program.
I've firsthand been affected by this a little bit here. We raise cattle as a family, and I've seen eagles legit pick up baby calves and take them and feast on them. So I've seen it. We've called our trapper, of course, wasn't in the area. It was one here and there, and then we had 3 in 1 year, and we're like, something's going on. And it just happened to be one day I was driving on the 4-wheeler, saw the eagle take it and drop it, and if there wouldn't have been that fresh snow, never would have saw it, never seen anything of it. So I think yeah, this is happening, and I've been a witness of it myself.
I've seen a couple pictures on the internet. I don't know if I believe the internet, but I've seen some of those pictures too of an eagle's nest with, it'll have sheep or calves, just, bones of in the nest, which is kind of crazy. So, but yeah, any other comments or questions on this or discussion? If not, I'll welcome a motion.
I do have a comment. Well, I guess it's kind of a question for you. So how do you feel about this? Is this where you'd like to see it, the direction we're going? Yeah, I feel like it makes sense to me, right?
Yeah, I would, as being a witness of it, yeah, I think it's headed in the right direction, so.
The only comment really from the sportsman side that I would say is not really what's being discussed. I think changing the program to make it, the program is in place to compensate for lost animals that were killed by wildlife. I think this is a good step in the right direction to make that more efficient. It's just the notion of that we sell grazing allotments, we move those private animals onto public property and then pay for those animals when they're not, that's, I don't know, that seems hard to swallow.
I've got a lot of issues with that, but that's not what that's not what we're voting on today. So
Yeah, let's talk about this program and go from there. I'll welcome a motion then if we're ready to vote.
Chad, I'd like to just say thank you to this, and if, like you said, of recommending someone to be it, and I would be willing to participate in that if you ever needed help on that. And so with that being said, I would make a motion to accept this presentation as presented from Chad.
All right, we got a motion by Kellen to adopt the recommendation as presented. John, do you have a second, or is this a question? Oh yeah, we got a motion on the table, John. Are you seconding the motion?
Yeah, sorry, I was mute off. I second that.
All right, we got a motion by Callan and a second by John. Any discussion on the motion? All right, welcome a vote. Go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Jim?
In favor, in favor.
All right, motion passes unanimous. 10-0. Okay, let's go ahead and go to item number 9. Chad, you want to come back up and talk about this R657-11?
Okay, yeah, this one is just recommending some changes to R657-11, which would be that would restrict the use of lethal trap sets on public land for cougar sport harvest. And just to clarify, that would allow producers and their agents to continue using those methods to protect their livestock.
Yeah, pretty simple on the language of the summary. Thanks, Chad. Let's go ahead and summarize public comments. Danny.
Yeah, we had quite a few comments on this, and of those that voted, 76 strongly agreed, about 5% somewhat agreed, and then about 19% strongly disagreed with the proposal. You know, the comments, supporters strongly favored the restriction of lethal traps on public lands to protect cougars, citing public safety for recreators and pets and the ethical concerns of indiscriminate trapping. Opponents argued that changes are feeling-driven rather than science-based and represent a direct attack on Utah's trapping heritage.
Okay. Let's go ahead and have Chad come up. Any questions for Chad on this from the RAC? John, go ahead. And then Drew, are you next? Let's go John and then Drew.
Thanks. Hey, Chad, once again, quick questions for you. The DWR recommendation to restrict the use of lethal removal sets on public land for cougar sport harvest, in my opinion, is a step in the right direction. Thank you for that. However, please confirm that restricted actually means prohibited. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Good. Does this restriction apply to the 6 units in the predator management study?
It applies in those units, but it's the predator management study is separate. It's a management action. It's not this is for sport harvest.
So to clarify, Chad, the division has the authority still to do studies on their own, separate from sport harvest by hunters or by trappers.
Yes.
So lethal snares can still be used in the predator management study, 6 units, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
By those that are authorized, not by the public.
Yeah, I understand. From the data presented in your presentation, it seems clear that the number of cougars being trapped by any means increased abruptly after HB 4691 went into effect in May of 23. Yet the total number of cougar harvested has fallen significantly each year since HB 4691 went into effect. Chad, would you agree that in the absence of any regulation, you would expect the number of cougars harvested to increase, and the fact that they are decreasing indicates that fewer cougar are present?
Yeah, I feel with hunting, there's always so many different factors. We have these last 2 years, we've had light winters. There's a lot of harvest that happens during the wintertime with lots of snowpack. They cut the tracks that way. So part of the potential could be that there could be some less cougars. I mean, that was the goal of the legislation. So,
right.
So yeah, there could be less, but part of those numbers, it might not be as significant as what we see here just because of light winters as well.
Do you know how many cougars have been harvested in the 6 units in the predator management study thus far?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. Somebody
Okay,
could search that, look it up for me.
You know how many non-target animals were caught, injured, or killed in traps intended for cougars since HB 469 went into effect?
Since that went into effect?
Yeah.
I don't have a total number on that either.
Livestock, horses, hounds, canines, non-target wildlife, and occasional people.
Yeah, I know. I will say this just in generalities. In the first year that we got some reports, and honestly, this year I've been the coordinator for a year. I've heard of 1 or 2 pets that have been caught. And that's it. But so if it's happening and it's not getting back to me, I guess.
Got it. Last question. Do alternatives exist which make the use of snare traps unnecessary?
Repeat that one, sorry.
Do alternatives exist which make the use of snare traps unnecessary?
There's different alternatives to trapping. Yeah, like there's different sets. The necessary part, I guess, would be the eye of the beholder. I think some feel like it is necessary and others feel like it's not. So I don't want to speak for everybody on that one.
Yeah, I guess the point I'm making is that there's multiple ways of harvesting, unquote, or trapping a cougar that don't require snares.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it, Chad.
Yep.
All right, Rack, there was other questions. Drew, you had questions. You're next.
This is probably my own fault for not knowing the background, but this recommendation, did it come from like on the restriction of public land? Did that come from the public coming to you with concern for using those, or how did this come about?
Yeah, so the legislature passed a law 3 years ago that allowed hunting and trapping of cougars year round. At that point, we brought things through the RAC and the board, and we got a lot of feedback saying, can we restrict some of these trapping methods? We said, let us look at it for 3 years. And at the end of the 3 years, if we feel like there's things that we can change, then we'll bring that recommendation back. And so that's where we're at, is looking at the amount of cougars killed by lethal harvest. It's just, it wasn't a lot. And so we felt like this is maybe somewhat place where there was a lot of concern beforehand, and they're not getting harvested in that manner, that we can make that recommendation of not allowing lethal sets.
Gotcha. So more so that trappers might be using other methods anyways. So if this helps the public too with, concern for pets, human livestock, et cetera, it's like a trade-off in a way, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Questions from the public. If you have a question, Troy, go ahead and come up here, state your name and ask your question.
Troy Justinson, Sportsman, Fish and Wildlife. Chad, I watched your presentation and this young lady kind of alluded to it. What is the driving factor of eliminating the use of lethal sets? Is it just that, from what I get watching your presentation, it's, well, if we're not catching very many lions or whatever, or is it because hounds being caught, pets being caught? What is the real driving factor for this recommendation?
Yeah, I'd say that we did look at the data. So we looked at that. We saw that it wasn't very many. We did get a lot of pushback from public people saying they don't like it. So I'd say a combination of all of that is what pushed that.
More so that than actual people using it in the harvest?
So as I've thought about this one, I've thought, if we had some of these numbers, if we had 50 cougars killed with lethal sets a year, I don't think we'd be here making this recommendation. So part of it is these numbers and what has been harvested through snares. Is there a component that even 3 years ago that people were saying, we don't like this, we don't want snares on the landscape? There probably is some pressure from there that helped push it that way too.
Thanks. I'll save another for comment. Thank you.
Other questions from the public? If you have a question, you can come up here and just state your name and ask a question to Chad. Okay. No other question. Oh.
From the public, but I am too. I'll move over there if I need to.
We can keep the RAC questions going. I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, if before House Bill 469 passed and you wanted to set a snare for a mountain lion, what was that process before those restrictions were removed?
Yeah, you couldn't trap or snare mountain lions
At all. Even if you drew a tag, you couldn't do that by trapping.
So, yeah, and if you caught one on accident, then you just report it to us and you would keep it.
And so this has only been a practice for 3 years.
Yeah.
Come on, go ahead and state your name and ask a question to Chad. Yeah.
My name's Chris My name's Chris Snell. I'm with Utah Trappers Association. Chad, just a quick question. As you gathered this information, did you survey the Utah Trappers Association? Did you survey any trappers in that decision?
I know we survey a lot, but most of it is just based off of these numbers that we got. So
Numbers of, like I'm trying to understand, where'd you get your numbers from?
well, it would be from our harvest results. So if you're saying surveys, as far as harvest surveys, yes, we,
So off of the harvest surveys, you kind of saw what the numbers were.
yeah.
What I'm getting at is did you talk to other people on the way that they were pursuing the mountain lions?
I don't know that we got like how much of, you're more alluding to how much effort was put in by different people.
And coming up with the proposal to eliminate snaring on public land. Did that come up just, I mean, internally, or did you guys reach out to other groups to understand that?
Yeah, for me, it was internally. Like we had discussions internally and said, hey, is this looking at that? Looking at the data is where we
Did you guys look at other methods like relaxing cable restraints rather than, lethal snares? Is that as part of your process?
Yeah, I think we considered that as well, and just some lines are kind of, it's easier to draw it if it's a lethal set than it's. Yeah, that's what the intent is just to draw the line there.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Josh, and then we'll go back here.
All right, so if this passes and snares are not allowed to take mountain lion, and I set a snare for coyote and I catch a mountain lion, what happens?
You just need to call the division, and then you wouldn't get in trouble. The division would confiscate the cougar. You wouldn't be able to keep the cougar. Yeah, that's how it was before. If you caught one in a trap, you call us, and if it's in a leg hold, then maybe we'd have let it go at that day. But now we just confiscate it.
Hold on, Ken's got a question first. Ken, sorry.
Ken Strong. Question. We're worried about snares on lions, but we're still allowing snares on the other animals. The reason we're outlawing it on lions is because somebody's dog might get caught or something. I've had 2 dogs caught in snares pheasant hunting and lost one of them. So it doesn't make any, you either outlaw snares completely, which is stupid, or you allow snares to be used and just use an educational course to where they can and can't be put. For instance, they couldn't be put along the Bonneville Trail or somewhere like that, but they still need to be used to control the lions. Thank you.
Bryce and then Brock.
Hey, Chad, a couple questions. I'm curious to know about the bycatch that existed before the bill was passed, when it was illegal to snare lions. How often were lions captured? 1, and then 2, how often do we see the bycatch of other animals right now currently? So dogs, pets, anything like that. Other animals that were not being specifically targeted or protected, any animals like that.
Yeah, like I said, for now, like I don't get reports of, like, it's very, very few, very minimal. If we want to go before that, then I'm going to pull a Heather and make Darren answer it, because he was in there. So you have an answer?
I do. It was more rare than it is now. And so a lot of times, in fact, even now, a lot of the lions that are trapped are bycatch. They're caught in a bobcat's, not a snare, a leg hold or something like that. In the past, the trapper would have had to let it go, and with the new law, they can just take it. People don't usually take more than one lion, and so it's just fairly rare. So, yeah, and just a little bit of history. Chad's only been doing this a year, but when we first changed this, we sat down with the Houndsman Association and Trappers Association and talked about the changes and if they had any concerns. And that's, I think, changed. It'd be fair to say it's changed over time. The Houndsmen have been really concerned about this from the beginning. They talked to the legislature a little bit about it, and what we agreed is after 3 years, we'd revisit this. And, they're particularly worried about the set for a snare that you might put out for a lion as opposed to maybe a coyote or a bobcat, and the potential for that taking a dog at a higher rate. It doesn't look like that's happening. I don't, they may have I know there's houndsmen here tonight. I'm sure that they can speak to that. But as far as, before Chad took over and before I was, before we switched, it was, talking to houndsmen, it happens. It's not always in a snare. It can sometimes be in a leg hold, and their collar dies and they don't know where the dog is. So that's a risk, though. It's public land, and so trade-offs. But I think in this case, we felt like this is something that there'd been some concern. This is a way we could address some of those concerns, and it doesn't really hurt us on the side the legislature is concerned about with the take of lions overall. So.
Chad, my question, I looked at the amendment to the state of Utah Constitution that kind of enshrined hunting and fishing as a right and the way we're going to manage wildlife. It says nothing about trapping in there. It just says hunting by traditional methods. Is this considered a traditional method of hunting, or is trapping not protected in the Constitution?
Man, I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that question. Not being an attorney, but I would think that it would. This is just me, but I would think that it would be under that.
Had a question, the third row there, come on up.
All right, my name's Jay Still. I'm with the Trappers Association. My question for you would be kind of piggybacking off of what Chris asked you is, how did you collect the data? I know you said the harvest report. Did you reach out to the association or any trappers? I know I never received any survey asking what methods of trap I use. Personally, I don't snare for cougar. So I'm just trying to grasp how, I know you said that the cougar harvest data was low for snares, but do you know the data on how many snares were actually, how many trappers were actually out there snaring?
Yeah, our biometrician Heather sends out those surveys, and I don't know everything on that survey. I'm going to see. Do you know? I'm not sure if that question was asked on the survey or not. I'd have to look it up.
Okay, because I personally haven't received one, but that's just kind of what I'm trying to grasp is I know the harvest data is low from your data, and it sounded like your incident reports were low. You said like you've heard of 1 or 2, which is relatively low considering how many trappers are in the state. I would maybe recommend trying to reach out to the trappers and see how many of us are actually snaring, because I'm personally not. I know a lot of people that trap that don't snare for cougar. And so if the reported instances are low, then I don't know if it's right to, I mean, I'm sure there's some trappers out there that are very proficient at using snares and that's their preferred method. And now we're trying to take this away from them with maybe just the correct data not being gathered the right way.
Okay, I was gonna say, yeah, next. Other questions? Okay, we've got some public comment here, so I'm just gonna read the public comment cards. I'll do the first one, and then once again, who's next on deck? So John Fairchild, and then following John, we'll have Tyler. I want to say, is it Keith? There you know, yeah, thanks, Tyler.
How's everybody doing? I'm partly here to show that there's a life after DWR, to advocate for wildlife. Okay. Got to come clean. I was in Danny's spot 10 years ago. And I have a deep respect for, what you guys are charged to do and the role that you play in wildlife management in Utah. And part of that advocacy is continued. I'm the vice chair for the Utah Wildlife Federation. And I appreciate the opportunity to meet with you this evening. The Utah Wildlife Federation recognizes the important heritage that we have with hunting, trapping, and fishing. Okay, we're not an organization that's anti any of those. Just to get that out in front. We are an affiliate of the National Wildlife Federation, and we work to promote the responsible management and sustained use of our natural resources while advocating for policies that protect and enhance Utah's wildlife and outdoor recreation opportunities. Our board met this last week, and we passed unanimously this statement of support for this amendment. And I'll read it because I don't want, it was passed by a board, not my personal comments tonight. Utah Wildlife Federation supports the need to eliminate lethal traps as a legal method for taking cougars on public lands. However, we're concerned that the term lethal trap lacks clarity. Trapping cougars is not on the table for discussion this evening, but the Wildlife Board does have the prerogative to determine how cougars are trapped. If the RAC votes in favor of the amendment to exclude lethal traps, we recommend that it considers an amendment to have the division define what constitutes an illegal trap beyond the definition that's given in this proposal, a trap that kills an animal quickly. Lacking that, we recommend that the amendment be changed to exclude the use of snares to trap cougars on public land. Snares are inherently non-selective and can capture females with dependent kittens, leading to abandonment. And that undermines the prior protections that were in place with previous species management plans. And it also violates an accepted hunting ethics. I know that when I was working here, we didn't remove does from agricultural lands after a certain date, and there was a reason for that. You know, we need the support of those that don't hunt. We don't want to create anti-hunters, and there is a social component to pretty much every decision that you guys make here. And so, you know, you need to keep that in mind. We support science-based wildlife management grounded in species management plans developed with robust stakeholder input, and encourage the division to reconvene a working group to update the cougar management plan that expired in 2025. Okay, I think we're done here. Now, Kent, that was a comment, not a question.
Thanks, John. Tyler, come on up. Thanks,
Okay,
John.
thank you.
And following Tyler, we'll have Justin Ellswick.
Tyler Keat with the Utah Trappers Association, and bear with me, I'm just going to read this letter so I don't miss a point that we want to make. If I don't get through it, I'll ask somebody else to finish it. So I'm here.
And Tyler,
representing
we're giving organizations 5 minutes. So John, you actually had another minute. I should have told you that, but 5 minutes if you need 5 minutes.
Thank you.
We're brief.
Well, I am here representing the Utah Trappers Association, an organization that just celebrated our 50th anniversary. Our mission has always been and continues to preserve our trapping heritage by promoting modern, humane, and ethical practices, which has provided predator management at no cost to sportsmen and government agencies. We were surprised, as many of you were, when the Utah legislation passed the House Bill 469, which basically delisted cougars as a protected species. The Trappers Association feels like there could have been a better solution. For many years, some of our members have wanted to be able to harvest a cougar on their own with traps, but contrary to popular belief, the Utah Trappers Association had not campaigned for this legislation in any way. It was becoming obvious to most of everyone that our deer herds were struggling, and if we were ever going to rebuild them in most areas of Utah, the cougar population needed to be managed and reduced. This has been proven by an extensive radio collaring that has been implemented. The DWR had been trying to accomplish this by increasing the cougar harvest objective quotas in these areas each year, but the quotas were not being reached. Modern tools used as trapping today is probably the most humane, ethical, and by far the most effective methods for predator control. Trapping in any form had previously not been allowed to reach these quotas up until 2023. It was believed by many that only one group of people should be harvesting the cougars. Trappers were never part of the equation and were not asked if they could be part of the solution. We don't think cougars should be annihilated, but like all wildlife, they need to be managed, and had been asked, we could have offered other options. No bag limits, quotas, and regulations across the state doesn't seem like a right answer. When targeting cougar, proper size foothold traps and cable restraints, which is snares with a relaxing lock, which is designed to restrain rather than kill, could have been one option, which hasn't been considered. If a dog that has been leash broke or accustomed to being tied strays and gets caught in the cable restraint, it might just be waiting for the handler unharmed. Most dogs won't fight a snare if it's a non-relaxing lock, if they have been tied out. We would encourage implementing a required cougar trapping course, which would be similar to the current coyote bounty course, but would focus on the ethical methods of harvesting cougars. As you can see, trapping cougars has been very effective in the new lion study areas where the deer herds have been struggling the most. When we saw the recommendation rule change, we reached out to our members with an email asking for feedback without trying to sway them in any direction. The overwhelming response we received was opposition to the rule change, not primarily because of every member plans on snaring a cougar, but many see this as the beginning of a slippery slope of losing our privileges one at a time, like what has happened in our surrounding states. We believe that more unit-specific approach to managing cougars would be much better than throwing a blanket over the whole state without targeting numbers in any area. Will result in under-harvest in some areas and over-harvest in others. We oppose this amendment and suggest that tabling this recommendation, giving time to evaluate the opinions, and invite the Utah Trappers Association to be included in the decision. We as trappers believe that science-based wildlife management that will support healthy, sustainable population of deer, cougar, and other wildlife species.
Thanks, Tyler.
We hope that the final decision doesn't lead us down a slippery slope that will lead us to losing our opportunities and pursue other ways of life.
Thanks, Tyler. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Justin Ellswick, and then following Justin, we'll have Carolyn Ellswick.
Hello, everyone. I was here last meeting and I learned a lot. One of the things that I learned, and thank you for the time spent that the DWR is expending on these issues. What I noticed is that the composition of the vast majority of people here and who have spoken are hunters and trappers. I told you that I'm a member of the general public. I don't oppose hunting broadly within constraint. I am very much in favor of the proposal to amend to restrict this. I've heard it mentioned that it's potentially a slippery slope, but prior to 2023, as we've heard stated, it wasn't permitted. So this isn't a removal of rights of a certain group of people who want to trap. They didn't have those rights for many years. I will tell you, I've been interacting with the public a lot on this. There was recently, you all might have seen, KUTV did a special about that little, that cougar that got stuck in the tree. And I made a comment, 1,700 comments later from people in the public in Utah. And this is generally about HB 469 and the high dissatisfaction that the public has with this. I want to say that as member of the public, I may not hunt or trap, but those of us who are in the public that don't do that, we do have a right to speak in this state, and our interests should be represented not only or exclusively to people who hunt and trap. So those of us who like outdoors, which I think is most of us, if not all of us, those of us who don't hunt, we have an interest as well. And what is happening, and y'all know it, We've seen the pictures, and the videos. There are young animals being orphaned, and there are animals being trapped and left, cougars specifically, and I say I'm out of time, in horrible ways. So we would encourage that if this is a slippery slope, this is a slope we want to go down. And I will tell you, the public knows about it and they want it as well. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. Carolyn, followed by Denise Peterson.
This is the first meeting that I've attended here. I heard a little bit about the last meeting concerning the deer and discussions that their numbers were on the incline, it sounds like, to some degree. And that's good news. And then I also heard that the hunters then wanted to be able to hunt more. And I can understand that. I have nothing against hunting or hunters myself, particularly. I have family members who hunt when it's done responsibly and not at the cost of exterminating other groups of animals. And I was kind of surprised, since I'm just kind of a lay person concerning these things, and doing a little research on what's going on with the cougars and their diminishing numbers, and the concern that the public is beginning to see more and more. We're beginning to see more and more that the public is concerned about this. And I thought John's comments were interesting. When is the species protected, but is not protected? So we think we need to be honest about this. When you have something in place that specifically states that they want to see as many cougars killed as possible, that animal is not protected here. And I think this is a sad commentary on human nature when they begin to take control of the environment and they're not using wisdom in controlling. They begin to hunt and destroy a specific species that they don't like for whatever reason. Let's be responsible and respectful to all of the animals in the environment. This cougar should not be being destroyed like it is. This is a cruel and it is an evil thing to hunt an animal into extinction. And we're not stupid, the public. As we begin to see this is what's going on, many people do not like it because it is wrong. And I would ask this group of people and hunters alike to realize, to kill off a species like this in cruel manners and leave their young to suffer and starve is, I don't care how you phrase it and how flowery you might make it look. This is an evil thing, and man should know better than this. They have caused extinction in other areas to their own disadvantage, as they have imbalanced environments by doing that. So let's think about this, please. You may not be able to come back from the brink of something that your studies have caused. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Denise, let's have you come up. Denise Peterson, and then we'll have Chance Jensen.
All right, Denise Peterson, Utah Mountain Lion Conservation. Thank you for having us. And I'm an organization, so should I get 5 minutes? Yeah. Okay, cool. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to hear from everybody. And so I don't know how many of you guys know us, but we started as an educational only group to help people get to know and understand lions. Never planned to do advocacy, but when you spend as much time with an animal as I do, because the houndsmen know it, I'm up there as much as they are, tracking and filming these cats. And so I've got a unique insight into lions. And seeing a lot of things since the law changed and since the study was implemented. And those are conversations that we can definitely have at some point. But we're definitely seeing changes on the ground pretty quickly. And so I say this as a member of the public, but also as somebody who's out there literally all the time tracking and filming cats. So obviously, again, thank you. But Utah's wildlife belongs to all of us. And with that comes a responsibility to manage native species carefully, transparently, and with the best available science. I've already thanked you, but I'll thank you again. And so I'd like to thank the division for following through on its commitment to revisiting the cougar management regulations after the legislative changes were made 3 years ago. Removing lethal traps, especially given their relatively small contribution to overall harvest, is a reasonable and practical step towards better protecting wildlife, domestic animals, and the recreating public. I encourage the members of tonight's council to support this recommendation. I also encourage the division to continue evaluating cougar-related regulations and work towards a statewide ban on cougar trapping, recognizing that lethal trapping presents avoidable risks to non-target wildlife, domestic animals, and long-term cougar population stability. These methods are inherently indiscriminate and can create impacts that extend beyond the extended target species. In addition, I urge the division to revisit cougar management practices more broadly, including stronger protections for females and juveniles. Research has shown that removing breeding females and established adult cats can disrupt cougar social structure and contribute to population instability. Juvenile lions that lose their mothers too early are more likely to struggle to survive independently and can be more prone to conflict with people, pets, and livestock. Protecting female independent young is important to maintaining healthy population dynamics, reducing human-wildlife conflict, and supporting long-term ecosystem balance. Managing one species through the widespread removal of another raises important ecological and public trust concerns. Wildlife management decisions should reflect not only sound science, but also the responsibility to steward native wildlife in a way that maintains ecological integrity for all future generations. Increasingly, Utahns are asking for management approaches that prioritize coexistence, sustainability, and balanced ecosystems. To close, I'd briefly like to address the WRI Study 7707. The RAC should play a stronger role in reviewing and discussing studies involving the removal of a native species. Expanding intensive control of a public trust resource sets a concerning precedent for wildlife management in Utah overall. These actions can reduce opportunity for one group of sportsmen in favor of another, rather than promoting balanced and equitable management for all of us, all wildlife stakeholders. Large-scale predator removal efforts should be approached cautiously and with strong public transparency, especially when long-term ecological outcomes remain contested within the scientific community. With that, again, want to thank you for your time.
Thanks, Denise. Chance Jensen, and then we'll have, oh my heck, guys, some of your handwriting. No, is it Rondo? Rondo Holtz? Did I get that right? Sorry, Rondo, you have good handwriting. I mean, it's really good.
I'm just gonna keep this one short and sweet tonight. I just want to let the division know you guys got my full support on this recommendation. Thanks.
Thanks, Chance. Yeah, Rondo, your N looked like a W, but it's good. I'm an attorney. I have terrible handwriting. After
Rondo Holt,
TJ
Utah
Pace.
Trappers Association board. I'm on the board of directors. I'd like to see this put back on the table until we get more information on everything, like using the cable restraint instead of a snare. If the dog's been on a leash or tied up, he knows when it tightens up, he ain't gonna fight it no more. That's, just put it back on the table and let's get some more information from the trappers and everybody else. Thank you.
Thanks, Rondo. TJ Pace, followed by Kyle Combs.
Hello, TJ Pace with Utah Houndsman Association. UHA supports the division on this. I mean, we're surely just looking after the safety of our dogs. And I want to appreciate everybody who put time and thought into this, and thank you.
All right, Kyle. Then following Kyle, we've got Gavin Woodhouse.
I'm Kyle Coombs, just representing myself. I'm strongly opposed to this. From the sounds of it, doesn't sound like there's much data, there wasn't really much thought put into it besides the fact that the numbers that were snared were low, I guess. And so this issue isn't really, we're not attacking. I just don't believe that by banning the snares, we're really going to do much good, because I can go set a snare for a coyote and it can catch a mountain lion and kill it, and I just turn it in and I just don't get the mountain lion. And so we're not really doing anything essentially, because snares are still allowed. And so I just don't think that this is, we're not really getting anywhere by doing this. And so I strongly oppose this. Thanks.
Thank you, Gavin, followed by Chris Snell.
Thank you for letting me speak. I'd just like to say that, like, with cougars, they're across all 50 states. They're everywhere. Yet we have native bighorn sheep in Utah that really struggle with their population. Every 10 to 15 years, they go through a sickness. They have a big die-off. Then there's mass cougars behind them. And I don't think it's right to set snares across the whole mountain, kill every cougar. That's not right. But when you have a problem cougar in a certain area, I think you should allow the public to set snares to catch that problem cougar, because a lot of big toms are smart enough to walk around foot trap. But when you have 200 snares around 200-acre property, that cougar is most likely going to walk through the snare eventually, and you're going to get him. And snares are a lot less costly than hold traps and all that. I'm not saying let snares, like, trap everything with snares, but to ban snares would be really bad, because snares help out in a particular situation much better than any other trap. So I think, yes, regulation on traps, snares, that would help. But I don't think getting rid of them solves any problem at all, especially just for cougars. Like they said, if you're going to get rid of them somewhere, you have to get rid of them all everywhere. So that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Chris. And then followed by Troy Justinson.
Thank you guys again for the opportunity to talk to you. I just wanted to share.
Yes, Chris, are you here personally or on behalf of the organization?
Well, I'm part of the Utah Trappers Association, but it's me personally. So I think Tyler did a wonderful job of sharing our opinion and talking about our stance on the opposing the regulation as it stands today. What I want to caution us all about is the results of unintended consequences. As we move to eliminate, ban, prohibit snares on public property, what are the ramifications and the ripple effect of this? Can I just share with you guys? I think I shared this with most of you via email, but in California in 1990, lion hunting was banned. Hound hunting in 2013 in California was banned. The bear numbers exploded, and now they issue up to 2 tags, but they don't allow hound hunting. California still kills the same number of lions as prior to the ban, but now they are killed by government agents and traps and hounds. Trapping and foothold snares were eliminated in 1998. Cage trapping was eliminated in 2019. In Colorado, we are seeing a bombardment of the trapping and hunting rights. You can see hound hunting was eliminated in 1992 in Colorado, trapping footholds and snares in 1996. Now, antis are trying to stop cage trapping and the selling of fur in Colorado. In Oregon, hound hunting bears and lions, 1994 was prohibited. Hound hunting, everything in Washington was eliminated. When will hunting and trapping in Utah be history? We need to be careful. There's a constitutional amendment, right? This needs to be legally looked at by the attorneys and lawyers of the division before we vote on this prohibition of using snares out on public land. That's just one of the steps that needs to happen. That's why we recommend, and I recommend, that we table this, that we work together. We love lions. We love the wildlife. We want to work together to make it sustainable. We want to use science-based, and we want to make it good for everybody to enjoy. We want to protect the hounds. We love the houndsmen. We don't have anything against them. We don't want to hurt their dogs, right? That's why maybe we could do something with, relaxing cable. What is it? Sorry, my mind went blank, but it's instead of locking snares, cable restraints, right? Tyler mentioned that a lot of dogs, when they get caught in a cable restraint that's not a locking snare, they'll just step right there and they won't choke out, right? So there's options out there. We want to work with you together. Let's work together on this so that everybody is happy about it, and that we don't start prohibiting different methods and all of a sudden those unintended consequences. That's what I'm nervous about, is unintended consequences and a slippery slope that all of a sudden we start banning stuff and we're in trouble. So thank you guys for the time. I really appreciate it. We appreciate all you guys do.
Troy Justinson, and then followed by Ken Strong, our last item on the comment cards.
Troy Justinson, Sports Fish and Wildlife. I wanted to say amen. I stand with my trapping brothers. I appreciate you guys hitting the nail on the head. Brought up a lot of good points. We strongly oppose the division's recommendation to ban the use of lethal snares for lions. We are not opposed to exploring ideas to help mitigate and prevent loss or injury to pets or hounds. To totally outlaw the use of lethal snares is unacceptable. This is a valuable tool in managing predators. Teddy Roosevelt stated, in order to have abundant game herds, predators must be managed. It makes no sense to allow livestock operators to use lethal snares to protect their herds and not be willing to allow sportsmen to use the same tool to protect our mule deer, elk, bison, you name it, bighorn sheep, whatever. Basically, what you're telling me is my brother's livestock's a lot more important than my wildlife. And trust me, I stand in lockstep with my brothers that raise livestock, and I'd be here defending them if they were under the same attack. That's not the point of this. And I appreciate you guys coming. Even though we have a different point of view, we can still have this discussion back and forth. I get it. But I do think it's important that we have the ability to manage these things. There's a lot of misconceptions about lions. Just about an hour this way, we used to have a desert bighorn sheep facility. We had about 35 sheep in that. It was basically 2,000 acres of high fenced. Within 17 months, we lost about half of that herd, and we'd removed over 30 lions. That does not include the number of lions we had on trail cameras that left. So this myth that there's not a lot of lions in the state, I'm sorry, it don't work. You know, the majority of my life as a guide and outfitter, I spent a lot of time in the hills. I've had the fortunate and the pleasure of seeing many mountain lions. And back when we could really use trail cameras, I'm going to allude to one experience on the boulders. My brother had a tag on the boulders. We probably had 10 to 15 cameras on there. There was not a single camera that did not have a lion on that. So they are more prevalent than what we think. And I get it. I don't want to see pets hurt. I don't want to see hounds hurt. You guys nailed it. Let's don't ban this thing. We can look at, you got to go through a course, get a COR, whatever. Now, is there places that, hey, we don't allow snares to be used along the Wasatch Front, whatever? You bet. I'm not opposed to that, but to totally remove it is a huge mistake, and we're totally against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Troy. Ken.
Now, Ken, is this a question or a comment?
Ken Strong, representing myself. A few years ago, our state legislators moved to make a lion a non-game animal, a predator. The reason they did that was because our deer herd was disintegrating. Utah leads the nation in collaring deer. And that guy is one of the most knowledgeable people that there is in mule deer. And
He
we
was pointing to me for the record. Oh, sorry. Just kidding. Just kidding.
and we have learned through the collaring and so forth that a female lion will kill more deer and a male lion will kill more moose and elk. We know the numbers that are being killed. We know what's going on. Why did our legislators make that move? It was to protect the wildlife that we had. Lions have not they have not gone downhill. They have increased. We have more lions now than we've had in the past. So personally, I think it's a great idea to keep going forward and not step backwards. If we step backwards, I don't want to see us turn into a Colorado, and I definitely don't want to see us turn into a Californian. I think it's important that we control the cougars. I think it's important that we allow the traps. And like was said, we need to maybe put some designated areas where they can't be used, but we do need to control the lions. And they have really gotten, I guess you could say, out of hand. I get a lady that called me the other day and sent me a photo. 5 lions, kittens, eating dog food off her front porch over in Saratoga Springs. She had called me 2 weeks before that and told me that I was crazy if I wanted to see a lion killed. Then she calls me up, sends me the picture and says, we need to get rid of them. So I just want you guys to realize that the state legislator passed the law for a reason. And we can't sidestep it and we can't back up on it. We just need to continue on with the program that we have already. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. I don't see any of the public comment cards here. Last call. Otherwise, we'll bring it back to the RAC for discussion. All right. You've commented before. Anything else in addition to your additional comment? Let's give him one. Yeah, you've used time though. I think, do you want to have somebody else comment for you real quick?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. The data does not show that the mountain lion population is increasing.
We'll talk about that.
The DWR's own data shows that that is incorrect. And so that has to be factored in. It is diminishing significantly. And as was stated in the last RAC meeting by Wardle, he indicated that due to habitat and weather issues, it is uncertain what the next decade will hold. So it's very dangerous to drop numbers of an animal. This isn't California, thank goodness. So I don't think that retracting this specific issue, even with respect to the bill, is taking away a bunch of rights. There were rights that didn't exist prior to 2020.
We'll talk about that. That's helpful. All right, let's bring it back to the RAC for discussion. All right, RAC, let's talk about that. One thing I want to say is there's a lot of strong emotions on all sides of this, and thanks for coming out. So let's talk about it. And remember, we're advising the board here, so let's go from there.
I think the first thing we need to maybe bring up is it legal to say that you can't trap? Is it part of the Constitution, the state constitution?
I think that's a question of law, right? I think it, the language in this, we're not going to go into the whole. Travis, should we just leave it there?
That is,
sorry.
it's interesting because Brock leaned over to me and mentioned that. So I pulled up the constitutional amendment. I'm not the DWR's attorney and I won't pretend to be, but I certainly have argued plenty of constitutional issues in my career. And I think it's an interesting question. It's one that the DWR ought to probably go run by their agency counsel and get some advice on. There was a comment made earlier. So I came in tonight actually not having a real strong opinion on this. I thought the division wanted to ban snares. There was 4 cats that were snared last year. So I'm like, okay, I don't care, ban it. It's 4. I don't really care. That's what I came in on. But there was a comment made earlier that really concerned me. You talked about the slippery slope, which that doesn't resonate with me. Like the slippery slope argument, like bring the evidence, right? I don't want to hear slippery slopes. That's a fallacy. I want evidence. But then the next comment was, we're working towards a statewide ban on trapping. That's a direct quote. That 100% will be a violation of the constitutional amendment. And I would not support that. And so the fact that we went from the slippery slope fallacy to an open admission that this is the goal, it's kind of flipped me to where I'm at. I'll continue to say, those of you who were here with us last meeting had to endure me give Mike a lot of guff over the mule deer numbers. I'm like probably one of the biggest opportunity people you'll ever see in your life. I want more deer tags for more people to hunt. I voted against the raising of deer tags on the Wasatch West specifically because it was inconsistent with everything that was going on around it, that the recommendations on similar units. There was a comment made tonight, why are we banning it for cougars, but we're allowing it for everything else? That's hugely inconsistent. If snares are that big of a problem, why are we only banning them for cougars? And so I think we ought to be consistent in what we're doing. And even though last meeting, I actually voted against my own conscience on that vote. For those of you who know me, know that because I didn't feel like the division's recommendations were consistent. And I don't feel like they're consistent now. And it really worries me that, again, I don't buy the slippery slope, but then it was fully admitted that this is our goal. We want a statewide ban on trapping. That was a comment that was made. And that's something that would absolutely be against the Utah Constitution. The legislature can't even do that. The division can't do that. We certainly shouldn't recommend it to anybody. And so I think I've grown more concerned as the meeting's gone on than I was when I got here.
Well, Danny, and then Brock, you question. Danny, then Brock.
I was just going to say, like the division and the board's authority is to regulate take, and that takes different methods. We alter and different methods through the board. So I'm not the lawyer either, but that's where we stand right now.
Along those lines too, just to follow up on that, is when they did pass the cougar thing, it says that you can hunt or trap cougar during a period beginning January 1st and ending December 31st. So there, I think it's saying you can trap cougars.
Right. I'm not a big fan of snaring. I've used snaring before, but I'm not a big fan of it. And I was indifferent to this proposal, but the comments that came in were really concerning to me because about half of them said this is a good first step. And that's concerning to me. That's why I asked the question about the Constitution, because if trapping's protected in the Constitution, then I'm not really concerned about this, but it doesn't appear that it is to me based on the wording. And so I am concerned about this, and I'm concerned about this idea that it's a good first step, or yeah, we're working toward a statewide ban.
Right.
I feel something very similar. I'm not a trapper. I pretended to be one for a very short period of time, and it was pathetic, and I'm awful at it. Obviously, bad. But I respect those that do, because if it's something that they're interested in, it's their right and their privilege to do so. I don't have any problem with it. I'm also an upland game hunter who has dogs, and I've had my dog stuck in a trap, and it was terrifying. I didn't know quite what to expect. Thankfully, it was a foothold, and my dog was not harmed. There was really no issue with that. I just undid the trap. She was on her way back hunting birds. Snares are a very different thing, right? I mean, I think we can all agree here that we don't want any of our pets or animals or bycatch to be, caught up in something like that. It's a scary thing. But I also recognize it's a very valuable tool in predator management. And it's probably, as was mentioned, one of the more effective ways of targeting a very specific animal in a certain situation. And probably more importantly than all of that, I feel like it is, as was mentioned, this is the first step in an eventually erosion of rights for a very specific group. I understand the need to protect hounds and all other wildlife. But if there's ways to prevent certain things, like has been discussed with certain snares or cables or breaks or whatever they were, I think those need to be explored rather than just taking it away. I mean, I'm going to remind you guys that we watched trail cameras be taken away from us. A lot of silly and insignificant things that might be viewed that way by others were tools. And at times they were, for people that weren't hunters, trail cameras were just an awesome tool to just go have fun and see what's in the wilderness. And that's gone, and it's not coming back, not likely. And there's a handful of other examples that started off with discussions just like this. And it didn't impact me directly so much. So I didn't really care. I didn't step up and say something, but like we mentioned, it may not be protected. So I think we do need to take a moment and really talk about that. So.
Go ahead, Drew.
I think I find this difficult because it says public land. And for me, anytime I'm looking at public land as a manager of public land, it's important to consider all user groups, and that is trappers and that is recreators. If recreators have a big concern, that's still something we do have to listen to. But if trappers have a concern, to me, it's how do we find a balance and how do we find a middle ground that, you know, alleviates concerns for both groups. So I'm wondering, yeah, how can we word it that there isn't concern for a potential reduction of trapping and what can be used, but how do we also protect some of those recreators that are concerned about pets or houndsmen concerned about dogs? Is there a way to word this that, you know, certain traps can be used, kind of like you talked about cables, you know, versus lethal ones that could kill pets as well. And it does state that, you know, these methods can be used for targeted though. So we're not, to me, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not reading it as, you know, if we need to target specific, we can't use this method. But I do think it's important to find this middle ground for all recreation and all types of recreation, whether it's hunting or if you're just out hiking or just, yeah, walking with your dogs, because it is public land.
Dumb question, Chad. But relaxing lock snare, maybe I'm not a trapper either. So how do those work?
I'm not much of a trapper either, but from what I understand, those are not lethal, right? They're not lethal, so they'd still be, you'd be able to use those because it's not lethal.
So does it like, as it starts tightening, it kind of stops so it won't go
But yeah,
all the way
it has
tight?
a lock,
Is that-
so it can't get too tight. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. So let's just go on the table here.
You can go ahead first. I don't know if I can get through all the thoughts, and I don't even know if it matters if I get through kind of all the different places that I went to, but you know, obviously I'm not a trapper. Represent Sportsmen, which is trappers are a part of that group. I think right out of the gate, trapping is a right. I don't really think that that's being attacked. Hunting is a right, but we don't allow poisoning. We don't allow certain weapons. We don't allow, you know, use of helicopters. There's all kinds of rules that govern how we take. So I don't really think that that holds much water. And then to speak maybe a little bit to the, why are we only banning the snares for cougars? That doesn't make any sense. Why are we? Well, I think it does make sense because of House Bill 469. I think that it does make a difference how we try to manage or take the mountain lions specifically. And so though I do respect trapping and I represent trappers and I would try to, you know, stand up for them or whatever, if I could, the mountain lion specific is a different topic than trying to just protect the right to trap. And I think that has to be considered, and that was pointed out really well, I thought. You know, my philosophy is that these are a resource, but they've got to be a renewable resource, and that managing the animals as the division is to make sure that they are renewable and that we're not disrupting natural systems. And I don't think, you know, that I think that that's how we need to do it, and we know how to do it. All of the species that we manage, we protect as best we can, and I think we're doing a good job. You know, one thing that's like really interesting, I've read all the comments, I've listened to all the people speak, I've taken notes. One thing that seems like everybody aligns on so far that's spoken, maybe with the exception of one slightly, is that we don't like House Bill 469. Every group basically agreed with that. And so I can't just put that out of my head, you know, and ignore it. So I guess, you know, one of my earliest hunting memories was seeing a big tom with my dad. I was 5 or 6 years old. I need to make sure that that still exists for my kids and their kids. And, you know, that was as important as anything we did deer hunting. And again, that's the natural system that's evolved for millions of years. And I don't think we should be messing with that. I think that we should be managing mountain lions as a resource in a way that makes them a renewable resource, but on the landscape. So to get to kind of my thoughts, the final thought here, sorry for taking so long. With the snare specifically, it's non-discretionary, which the House Bill 469 really took away our ability to manage mountain lions as a renewable resource. And a snare is non-discretionary. So I see that, you know, the other interesting thing with House Bill 469, from what I understand, is that you still had to have a hunting license, which provided some accountability, and you couldn't kill a female that had cubs or kittens. Well, a snare doesn't make that, you know, that designation. It just kills. And so in an environment where I feel like we're already probably managing mountain lions or lack of managing mountain lions, I think that restricting any method that's indiscretionary is probably a good idea. And so I feel like I'm probably in support of it, even though I do support the right for trappers to have a trap. And, you know, I could see a kid that can't afford to pay $10,000 to go on a mountain lion hunt with hounds wants to be able to buy some traps and go get that resource. But in the current climate, I think the far more important thing is protecting and using whatever management tools we have to the best of our ability. And if that means that we can get rid of some non-discretionary take, I'm all for it. And the only argument that I've really heard to the counter is the slippery slope argument, which in freshman English, you're taught that's a fallacy, and it is a fallacy. So it's, to me, we can't be voting off of that. It's like, bring the evidence, especially in the case where this has only been a privilege for 3 years. I don't know. I think I'm in support of it.
John, I saw you hit your nose, but we're actually gonna have Jared go first, then we'll go to you, John, online.
Yeah, usually I stay in my lane, which is the hang lane and the municipality interaction. This to me, I mean, I wasn't there for when the bill was passed 3 years ago. I'm assuming that there was some reasons other than the deer, maybe safety, that sort of thing. It seems to me that there was probably a lot of reasons it was passed. It seemed to be a little bit more comprehensive than what we have here. I think that, you know, I kind of the proposal from what I'm hearing is 3 years ago, we said we'd do something, so this is it. And I just don't think that the data backs it. I think it ought to be more comprehensive, not just a ban. I haven't heard the reasoning, the numbers, the science or anything for it. I think it was just we said we'd do something in 3 years and here we are. And I guess my opinion is I think it needs to be something more in depth than what it is, taking into consideration everything we've heard, you know, and that could be restrictions, you know, in the way that they're taken, where they're taken, or less restrictions in areas, you know, how they're taken, where they're taken. I just don't think that's what I'm hearing is 3 years we said we'd do something. Well, okay, let's do this. It's just, it doesn't seem, it's not comprehensive enough for me.
Thanks, Jared. John?
Yeah, not this last speaker, the speaker before that, right? And that was Josh, right?
Yeah, Josh Case.
Yeah, Josh Case. I thought his comments were right on target and very thoughtful. So I asked Chad, you know, do alternatives exist which make the use of lethal snare traps unnecessary? And one of the speakers mentioned unintended consequences. Well, let me relay a potential scenario for you. My wife and I have a number of friends and family in Garfield County. And I preface the following by saying that any of you with contacts in Garfield County, please reach out to them for confirmation to validate the following. I see this snare situation as a matter of time before something tragic happens. I've been contacted by 2 independent sources, again, friends and family, independent, who mentioned that just this past week, a well-known Garfield County rancher who's an expert horseman took guests out on the boulder unit when his horse stepped into a foot snare. And the rancher's expertise as a horseman is the only thing that kept a serious accident from occurring. They've got video of this situation, as I've been told. I have not seen it personally. And it was a grouping of snares using scent lures, timers, speakers, and solar panels. And it was known to be set by a state hired trapper whose name is known. This seems now to be a human safety issue. Think of the potential lawsuit against the state if the rancher or one of their guests had been seriously injured due to a snare placed by a state hired trapper. I personally believe it would be most reasonable to ban non-discretionary lethal snare traps of any kind, especially those intended for cougar, from all public lands. What do you guys think?
Let's keep it going, the discussion. It's been good so far. Thanks for ready to share your opinions, by the way. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So going back to the discussion of, how do you distinguish making it legal to target bobcats with snares and completely illegal to capture his bigger brother? I mean, what's the difference? How can you determine intent with that? That's probably more of a question for a trapper. I'm sure there's different sets that are used, but I mean, if the concept is the same, if you can catch a horse with a snare, you could probably catch anything with a snare, right? So I don't understand if we're going to make this illegal for one specific animal and you have to do it across the board. And see, that's my concern, because you're starting to take everything off the table, and these are tools. And because I do agree with that if you're gonna keep it legal for a certain species, but illegal, you're gonna make it illegal for another, then that doesn't make sense to me, because you're going to have bycatch. It's just what it is.
Yeah, but to that point, if that became an issue, and again, my understanding of trapping kind of like begins and ends with probably Tom Miranda, so I don't know what I'm saying here, but if you're repeatedly going out as a trapper and this is happening all the time and you're trying to make a set for a bobcat and all you're catching is mountain lions, there should be a recourse. If a bobcat trapper every time he went out trapped and killed a 200-inch mule deer, all of us here would be fine with making a ban of that. But it isn't, and I don't think it's the same thing. I think we're varying away from the point of the problem, which is how are we going to try to manage mountain lions in an environment where we've been stripped of our management ability. And I think that's at the heart of trying to get rid of it, potentially banning it.
So, Kays, do you believe then, I mean, what about other trapping methods for lions?
Again, it's a problem. And I don't know that you can foot trap a lion and then walk up to it and talk it into letting you let it loose. So to me, I'm not sure that anything's not a lethal trap. I think I'm just in support of this one because it introduces some control over discretionary take of mountain lions, females, males, size, population, something. It gives us something.
By the way, Brock, I don't know how you do this not being able to vote. Like, unless there's a tie. If there's a tie, I get a vote, right? So, because we're kind of where I'm at. I came tonight kind of like probably a lot of us, like, why are we even here? Like, this is like the data shows it's not an issue. 4 mountain lions has been, is all we've caught. We hear about these stories of this indiscriminate take, that things are happening, but I'm not seeing the data to support that. But on the other side, I'm like, if it's not an issue, then we can regulate it anyway. And, either way, it doesn't matter, right? I kind of thought, why are we here on either side? It's not going to make a big difference. But then as I've kind of heard comments today and doing some reading online before I came to the meeting, just kind of trying to digest this. I was kind of in the, can't we do something in between having that, I didn't know what it's called, but isn't there a tool where you just don't snare them and they die, but a way just to catch them? If the goal is management, it's still a tool, right? They're still going to kill the mountain lion in the end. If they caught that mountain lion and trapped under the current situation, I'm guessing the trapper, I don't know, I shouldn't speak for the trappers, but they're probably still going to say, hey, I got a mountain lion in my snare. Cool, I can take it. And they may take it. But if it's in a non-lethal, whether it's a relaxing lock or a, some kind of restraint on the trap or a foot trap, I think that mountain lions, they could potentially let it go. But where I'm at is kind of that, I like the idea. I think multiple folks said, hey, I think John kind of had some ideas, let's amend this. It kind of started throughout a few folks saying, let's amend the rule. Let's not just make it a broad, no snares or snares, and let's all just walk away angry. I'm kind of in that middle ground of, isn't there a way we can still do it and then revisit this and say, is this really an issue or not? Once again, strong passions on everybody here. So I'm not sure the right answer. Sometimes I wonder, why is government getting involved here if it's not an issue? On either side.
I've been hesitant to say anything. So my name's been associated with the cougar study. I have nothing to do with the cougar removal in this state. I want to make that clear. Wasn't involved in it, not involved with it, but we are trying to study if the deer respond to the efforts that the state is doing. And to several people, somebody said cougars are declining. Some said that they're increasing, and the models predict that maybe they're declining a little bit. But I would argue if either of these guys stood up, they would say we have no idea. We have killed more females, but we've been less discriminate. So the primary thing that goes into the model is the proportion of females. But if you're not targeting a specific animal with hounds, you end up killing more females. So I don't know how they know how many there are. It's like stick your finger up in the wind and guess. What I do know is that they are trying to reduce, not eradicate, not exterminate, trying to reduce populations on 6 units. And we are still losing about, depending on the unit, between 6 and 23% of the deer herd each year to lions. So there's still plenty out there. That's what I'm saying.
Thanks, Brock. Bryce?
Didn't you have something you were going to say? Speak up.
Mr. Skeen?
I just wanted to, this is also a hot topic, right? Because it's lions. I think a lot of people come out of the woodwork, and rightfully so. I appreciate everybody's perspective and everyone's opinion on the lions, because they are a beautiful animal. I've been lucky enough, fortunate enough to have seen 11 lions in my life, and every single time I was in awe. My mouth was wide open. These are stunning animals, and they deserve to be here. And I don't think anybody here wants to see them disappear. I don't think anybody here would be supportive of anything that suggests get rid of them. But we do have to manage them. That's part of wildlife. That's what it is. And I don't know all the answers. I would never suggest that I do. I don't know if there's a middle ground here for the traps, but I also think that, like to Josh K's point, it's the indiscriminate killing of the females that perhaps is a problem. And even the young, even any of them, right? That is the problem. And so I'm kind of back and forth on the snare thing. I mean, I didn't want to see them go away, but I also think it's important that we recognize that we can't, I mean, if we're killing anything and everything, that's also kind of a dangerous thing. The other thing I want to say is it's strange that if we were having the same discussion about coyotes, I don't think anybody would blink. I don't think there would be a single person here. Coyotes. And we are in fact trying to eradicate, and have been trying to eradicate, coyotes for decades. And guess what? We haven't. They're more plentiful now than ever.
I keep hearing that we're trapping dogs or we're taking kittens but I haven't seen anything that suggests that. Have you guys seen that?
I have talked to a few of the houndsmen that have lost dogs. I don't know if it's this or if they were in bobcat snares, but over the years they have lost a few dogs. But I don't know if it related to this, what's happened the last 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. If you have a hound, you put a lot of time into it. You put a lot of money into it. You don't want to see that happen. But the same thing could happen to your German Shorthair when you're pheasant hunting or chucker hunting, right? So I don't know. I don't think that argument has a lot of water to it.
John.
Josh, I know multiple houndsmen in the state of Utah who have actually sold their dogs because they felt they needed to stop using them in Utah due to the risk of running into a snare. And I'm happy to give you their names privately.
All right. Thanks, John.
Mr. Skeen.
Clarification before I make a comment, because I want to make sure my comment's correct, Chad. House Bill 469 passes 3 years ago, goes into effect. My memory is telling me the year after that went into effect, we killed less lions than we did the year before it went into effect. Is that correct?
I think it was similar. It was
almost the exact same.
Almost the exact same, but
yeah.
even just a few less, right?
I have it here. 22, 23 was 531, 23, 24 was 530.
So one less.
Yeah.
And then 24, 25.
379.
So significantly less. So to me, I think we're making House Bill 469 a boogeyman that doesn't exist. Like when I hear Josh say this indiscriminate, we can't manage lions. We have all, like, 469's taken all this away. We're killing less lions after 469 than we did before when they were managed. And so again, like, I feel like this has become a much bigger deal than it is, because we're talking about 4 cats that got snared last year, according to your guys' numbers that were there. 4. That doesn't seem all that indiscriminate to me. And so, but at the flip side, and Braden knows this, I talked to him before the meeting about it. Flip side, it's only 4, so who cares? We're not really hurting people by taking away that 4, right? And so, but I feel like making 469 this giant problem for cats, like, we're killing less cats after 469 than we did the very year before. And so it's not like they're decimated because of the passing of 469. If they were decimated before and they're not available. The passing of 469 has not caused the population of cougars to reduce in Utah. I think we can make that statement pretty confidently. Now, they might be reducing. I don't know. I think Brock was right in saying we have no idea how many there are, but I think we're setting up a boogeyman that doesn't exist when we keep pointing at that law, particularly when nobody in this room can impact that law.
John.
Yeah, I think that your assumption is that all harvested animals are being reported. And what HB 469 did was it basically sent the message to the public and the hunters of cougar that, you know, we removed the DWR oversight, and basically it's open house, free game, no restriction. Take as many as you want. And I think that the reporting accuracy undoubtedly has suffered. So the DWR can provide these numbers, okay? But I think that just the message that HB 469 has sent is that, hey, we're no longer as strict in our oversight of cougar hunting. Go at it. Take as many as you want, 365 days a year. And I think that many of the DWR personnel that I've spoken to confirm that that's a fear that they have.
Yeah, so I'll jump in there. So I said it's indiscriminate, but I didn't say it was decimating ever. I didn't make that claim. Now, admittedly, we don't know the numbers. They could be killing less because there are less. We don't know. I think everybody can agree on that. But what and maybe what that does highlight, which I'm okay saying, and especially if we want to talk about slippery slope or how this can go, I'm a huge proponent of science-based management, of trying to create natural systems and allow human beings to be a part of that system and take out enough that it doesn't cause cascading effects through a ecosystem. And I think that if we want to talk about a boogeyman, it's making laws without science-based research or without consultation of the division, because maybe it benefits you as a hunter today, but like you can see it in all the other states. As soon as that changes, that's a bigger boogeyman than anything else. So you got to be careful what bedfellows you make, right? So my objection to it, and maybe it is symbolic on this one, but it's something that I will make symbolically. Try to take back as much management power as you can under the division. If that's stopping, trapping that doesn't concentrate on male take or population level statistics, or sampling off of the age or the size or the sex, which is what we did before. Yeah, I think we should take that back.
I just like our law enforcement lieutenant to maybe come speak to checking in cougars.
So my name's Matt Brick. Currently, the way the law is, any cougar harvested has to be checked within 48 hours. It's been that way for many, many years, and it is still that way. Every cougar that is harvested, we see, or they're required to check it within 48 hours. So when that animal is harvested, there is record of that harvest taking place.
And maybe kind of to that point, hunters that don't report, talk about the penalty that those that don't.
It is a violation and the animal can be seized and generally will be seized. So we do check those cats, and taxidermists will not, the ethical taxidermist will not take a cougar that has not had that permanent seal attached.
All right, Lieutenant, so they are attaching a tag.
We attach a permanent seal to that pelt that is only removed at the tanning process. So we see all the cats that are harvested.
That go through a taxidermist.
Or if they do their own work or skin it and dry it, we see all the cats.
That's helpful. Thank you. Kind of to your point too, Bryce, I forget who said it, that they're worried that we're going to have extinction and, this indiscriminate killing of lions. And that's what folks want here. And I was like, oh, that's not what folks want here. I hate going down the memory lane game, but we're gonna do that for a minute. Just my two, I'm not like Bryce. Bryce is out all the time. He sees them all the time, I guess. I've seen 7 lions, which I still feel like is a lot for a lot of folks, or for many hunters. But the first lion I ever saw in the wild, I was 16, down by Ephraim, hunting on the west side of Ephraim. And we were walking through some juniper and pinyon cedar, and off a rock jumps a lion. And it stands there about 10 yards away. And my cousin's sitting right next to me, who's actually, he hates lions. He's a sheep guy, and he yells, "Shoot it." He's like, "Shoot it." It would have been illegal. I want to point that out. This is, would have been out of season, all kinds of problems. But he's like, "Shoot it." And I just remember looking at that lion and thinking, I have no desire to shoot that lion today. I don't know if it was a tom or, I have no idea. I just remember it was a big old lion. I thought, that is cool. And then it turns and just took off running. 6 years ago, I was on the Wasatch Front tracking a big group of bucks with a really nice buck. Coming in, I got within about 45 yards of these deer, and I was just waiting for my shot when all of a sudden this lion came in and started stalking these deer. I literally stopped hunting. This is back before I had a stupid little flip, camera, and just filmed the lion because I thought, how cool is it? It blew up my whole stock, right? Deer ran out. It wasn't successful. I wasn't successful, but it was a cool moment. So I do not want to see lions go extinct. Whoever said that, I think they are awesome to see on the landscape. But I'm also a deer hunter. I also believe in predator management. I think whoever brought that up, I think it was Troy maybe. I love Teddy Roosevelt. I've read every book he's written or written about him. I feel like kind of a nerd that way. So I believe in conservation, wise use, management. And so, which is why I do struggle with HB 469, because it takes away some of that management authority from the state. But I'm still, I'm still where I'm at. I'm not going to vote. I still don't know if I don't think either outcome today is going to be a good outcome. I think if you say go with the recommendation, we're stuck with half the people in the state unhappy and saying, why do we do this? And I think there'll be a win. Hey, this is a win. But if we go the other route, people are going to say, hey, this is a win. We're protecting and trapping forever in Utah. And it's just going to create these strong positions where no one's going to move. So, I think ultimately what I'm hearing is we want to manage lions. We, the RAC and the board, have had some tools taken from us. Maybe that's a broader message to everybody. Talk to your legislature, get involved. That's the broader message I'm hearing today is if you want to see management return back to the division, get involved so it goes back to the division.
Thank you, Braden, for your beautiful memories. You just practice your storytelling. You get there one day.
I saw some cheers out there.
Again, I just want to point out, I really do appreciate, because as was mentioned, these resources belong to everyone, all of us here, and it is a valid point to have a differing opinion, and I appreciate that. I think that, Braden mentioned that not everybody's going to be happy however this ends. I don't know how it's going to end. But I do appreciate everybody coming and showing their support one way or another of the animal itself. And, some people hate them, some people love them, but I think that everyone in here understands that there's value in each one of these lions. And I don't want to see him go anywhere. I think that what he mentioned, JT mentioned, that he wants his children to be able to see and experience a mountain lion in the wild is truly what I would hope all of us have in our heart and our minds. And this may or may not matter in any way how it's managed. Eventually, it might change in a couple of years. I don't know, but clearly there's passions here from everybody. And so I just wanted to say I appreciate everybody for coming and showing what they care about.
All right, I'll welcome some motions here. We can try one, see what sticks, go from there, or keep discussing. It's up to you guys.
I think Braden made a really good comment. No matter what happens, there's going to be a lot of people unhappy. And I'd much rather see us all get in the same room. And maybe that'll never happen, that you say it's okay to harvest some lions. And maybe it's not okay. It'll ever happen. The other group says it's okay to put any restrictions on me. But I wish we could get in the same room and say, yeah, let's come up with a sustainable method of harvest and number of harvest and get the legislature to support it. I mean, that's the only way we can walk out of the room and smile. Everybody says, oh, there's a place for them on the landscape at a certain level.
Can I vote for that?
I cast my vote. All right, nobody? I guess I'll try. All right, I'm gonna make a motion that we reject DNR's proposal.
All right, we got a motion by Josh to reject the recommendation, but just wholesale rejection. Okay, by Josh. Do I have a second?
Some lights.
Hold on just a second, John. Was that a second, or you want to wait? Or you want to make a comment on that? We can't make a
Sorry,
comment.
fixing the lights in here. No comment. I do not want to second that.
Okay. I just want to be clear, it wasn't a second from John. Is there a second on Josh's motion?
Yeah, this is Amos. I'll second that.
We got a motion by Josh and a second by Amos to reject the proposal by the division. Before we get to a vote, any discussion on the motion?
You got a microphone? I never need those because I have a loud voice, but the only thing we're voting to reject is the use of snares for cougars. Is that?
Lethal snares for cougars.
Lethal snares for cougars. Is that?
Lethal traps, right?
Lethal take method.
Yeah, any lethal trap method.
which is defined how.
One is snares, but you could potentially have body grips or just anything that you're doing that's lethal. So that we have that definition of lethal, which is immediate kill. Anything that would immediately kill.
I just want to make sure I know for sure exactly what I'm voting for or against here.
So Josh's motion, yes, to reject the recommendation, kind of keep it where we're at, keep status quo as of today. Correct. Any other discussion on the motion? Jim, you have some, oh, good, bro.
I was gonna say, my only other discussion is if we reject this, what's the alternative? I mean, is the alternative to accept? I really don't like either of those alternatives. I don't know what the right answer is personally.
Amos, did you make a comment there?
You know, I'm reading this. If we just do away with that S 65711-9 D, that lethal traps targeting cougars, I don't think it'll affect the whole portion of that section. But I think what we can do is, if I may add to Josh's recommendation, would be we could readdress the lethal traps targeting cougars with further documentations in regards to that, because I'm thinking targeting, just kind of focusing on the managing the cougars. I don't know why the cougars is in this portion of that, because it takes the whole focus out of this whole recommendation. And if the cougars are being led into this snare, then that causes a problem. But if you look at it as a management perspective, we somewhere in here it needs to be cougar take. However, the discretion of how these animals are being taken but being managed. I think in each area there, I think the division has numbers of such animals in their particular areas. So if you want to manage that, I think if you're taking a cougar by rifle or by snares or whatever it is, you're taking and managing that particular species. So I may be contradicting what the recommendation is, but I think this particular area just needs to be, the language in it needs to be changed to better, so we could better understand it. Because anyway, that's my thoughts, but I'm still got the second on that.
I don't even know how I'm going to vote right now, because I agree with you, Josh. We should be able to manage them how we need to manage them. I don't know how we do that.
Yeah, and again, this infringes on another fallacy. So for the English majors out there, I apologize. But play the scenarios out. Play the worst case scenarios out. The worst case scenario is all of a sudden 75,000 hunters get a hankering to go snaring. What happens? And there would be no control. So to me, it makes it obvious what the idea is that the alternative is that 4 people don't get to snare a mountain lion this next year. I don't know. I think that you have to move to those type of arguments, because again, it's not a good solution. A good solution is that they're managed. They're in abundance. We have good data to suggest that the populations are healthy. We implement hunts that are ethical, that are, reasonable. That could be trapping for all I know, but we control the take. we're not in danger of spiraling a population out. That's more important than anybody's given way that they want to go out and, you know, keeping that population healthy and protecting that is more important to me than a few people's experiences, to be honest.
I generally agree with that. Only one other thought, and that is we're just limiting it for the people that use public land. We're not limiting it for that whole other group of people. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Bryce. We'll call the vote after.
Oh, there's still discussion on the motion.
On the motion,
right?
yeah. If we're ready, if not, we'll keep discussing.
So this is, in a way, I want to see what a motion would look like from you, Josh Case.
Let's vote first.
Well, but
if it
Brock
passed,
said the same thing. What's the alternative, right? I mean, I know if we're rejecting, it's a flat out no, and we vote on that and it passes, it's over. I just am curious to see where it would go if we.
And I guess, Josh, would you be open to an amendment if an amendment's proposed?
And you may not be.
Possibly. I don't know. I would like to see this vote and see how this vote goes.
Okay.
And then we can make amendments from there.
Okay, I'll call the vote and then we'll see where it goes, I guess, from here. And if we need to readjust motions, we can. But there's a motion and a second, so I will have to call the vote. So all those in favor, go ahead and raise your hand. I got one. Amos, are you going to vote in favor or against your motion?
Yeah, hey, I'm in favor.
You're in favor. Okay, we got 2 in favor and 8 against. So the motion fails. All right. So I will welcome 11. Sorry, did I count that wrong? 11. And Jim, you did not vote, correct? You okay, got it. Okay, so 2 voted for, everybody else is against. 2 and 9. So okay. Motion fails. Let's go ahead and thanks, Josh.
Case, I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that, but I'm curious.
No, I understand what you're saying. I think that's what we're trying to decide is like, where is the consensus and is there an amendment that we can make other than an outright approval? And I'm just not sure that there is because it's very specific. And again, it's 4 lions. So like I've said, not to be a hypocrite, if we're managing at a population level, which is I think important to do, probably doesn't make a big difference either way. But I do think it sends a message that we're trying to take whatever management rights that we still have seriously. So the proposal, if I were to make one, would be to accept the proposal as is.
Okay, hold on. Oh, there's got a motion. Oh, dang it, Jim, I was going to ask a question. We got a motion in a second, though. So the motion is to accept the recommendation as presented. Chad, can you just clarify? They talked about these non-lethal snares. Would those still be authorized?
Yeah, any non-lethal type of trapping you'd still be able to do that.
So if you had like a snare with that lock on it,
Yeah.
that's still allowed under the proposal. Okay, so we got a motion and a second to accept as presented. Let's have some discussion on the motion. Josh?
Would you add that snaring with non-locking snares to your amendment? Are we sure?
They're technically considered non-lethal. So it's in the language. Darren's saying we could add it if we want.
If you could tell Chad real quick the facts.
So if we go and we just look at what we put for the definition of a lethal trap means any trap that is designed to kill an animal instantly or very quickly upon activation.
Yeah, I didn't
So
like that very
it's-
quickly part. It was kind of, but I get where you're coming. The intent was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if that's our definition, then anything that's not killing it instantly or quickly upon activation wouldn't be considered a lethal trap and you'd be able to use it. Hopefully that clarifies.
Trapper, want to clarify? Nice. You can come up to the microphone. Just come up to the microphone real quick. This is helpful, just if it's lethal or not.
And tell me if I'm wrong, Mr. Wilson, law enforcement. Right now, you cannot use releasing lock now. So even like if a snare right now is a lethal set, all snares are considered lethal. Because you cannot legally use a relaxing snare right now.
Oh, they're currently not allowed.
Correct? Anybody know any different?
So it sounds like they're clearly not allowed, but maybe that's something to look at.
They
Okay.
do exist. They're, the way I understand it, back east, some states, that's all you can use. So when we propose that being an option, that would be a change of law to make it legal to use that. Some other things you could do is increase the diameter of the cable. Your proposal, just
We'll have to get to the discussion, but give us like 10 seconds. Go ahead.
just how do you designate a set for a lion?
Yeah.
Like if law enforcement walked by and said, oh, that's a lion set, can you enforce that?
Yeah, no, I think that's off the table. I think, yeah, we're just talking about lethal. Is it going to be a lethal take? So let's go with that. So we got a motion and a second. Josh, you had asked, would you amend? JT, are you willing to amend? If not, we can revisit that on a secondary motion.
Amend, and what was the?
To allow, to have the state look into allowing, what are these, relaxing locks to your snares.
And this is the only thing that I'm hesitant about is I am over my waders right now. I don't know what these things are. I don't even know what I would be voting for. I don't know what a slackening snare is. I probably wouldn't take the amendment just because I'm ignorant of it, and maybe I need to go to the Trappers Association dinner, if not, hopefully not be run out at this point. But yeah, I would probably need more education on what I would be even saying.
So I kind of agree with that. I'm probably going to vote against this, and it'll probably pass. I don't know, but I think the better idea is to get everybody in the room and try to come up with something that we can all live with than this.
Yeah, not come up with a solution right here in the meeting. So, Jared, go.
Yeah, I agree. I brought it up earlier. It's just, there's nothing comprehensive about this. I know kind of caught in between, but I'm going to go with they need something more comprehensive here. I don't think lazy is the word or whatever. I know there's probably some work gone into this, but I think it's just, let's do this because we said we were going to do something, and there's not enough thought into it.
May I ask one more question to Chad? Mostly because I beat up Mike last month and I haven't beat you up near enough tonight. A lot of times when we make recommendations, a committee's put together and we go and we have a committee work on these things, have meetings together. Who was involved in this decision?
Our director's office was very involved in this decision. So we had some conversations. We brought it to the ag working group, had discussions there with them. So that's who was involved in making this decision going forward.
But not the trappers.
From what I understand, talking to Darren, like they've been involved in the past, but like in this most recent,
in this
recent
recommendation,
one, we didn't reach out to them.
That seems like a miss to me. To have the stakeholder being impacted by this, not have a voice at the table, that feels problematic to me.
Well, and you can kind of see if ag was involved, it's not in this rule doesn't affect private property. So you can kind of see who was in the room.
Doctor.
Yeah, I think we've heard from multiple houndsmen that they're very much against the widespread use of snares. And I think that this bill or this recommendation by the DWR just sends a message to both the legislature as well as the public that we're trying to regain control of the situation, which has gotten out of control. So it ain't perfect, but it's not a bad place to start. Again, it's not going to affect that many individuals. So I would encourage the group to go ahead and approve the motion that's been seconded to approve this as presented. Thanks.
All right, we've got a motion by JT and a second by John to approve as recommended by the division. Any other discussion on the motion? Bryce.
I think a lot of us came in not knowing how we were going to land on this. And again, I just want to point out, I very much appreciate all the comments, and I think it has actually helped influence my decision. I think if I've arrived at it, but I would say, I think I'm leaning toward accepting it. I really am. I feel like, there's enough worth protecting there, and there's not enough telling me that we shouldn't do it. That's kind of where I'm at.
Tyson.
Can I make a friendly amendment to the motion?
Yeah.
And this is what I would say, and you don't have to accept it, but this is what I would say. If we make a motion, if we approve this to pass this as recommended by the division and ask the wildlife board to instruct the division to go back and work with all stakeholders, because it sounds like even the trappers are saying, we can make this work if you give us other tools that are currently banned. And that's probably my biggest hang up right now, because I feel like if we're banning something where they're willing to say, okay, we can maybe get rid of this, but we have this other tool over here that you're not letting us use. If we could somehow get that in place. So help me verbalize that, Josh Kays, because I mean, you've kind of convinced me to maybe go along with your side on this as we've talked tonight, but that is one, like, to hear that they weren't even involved in the decision on this is that's troubling to me. We form committees with stakeholders on everything that we do, but not this one.
Yeah. And I think that if that were our position that we wanted to take as a group, was that we wanted this to not pass, I think it would have to change to that we reject as proposed, with the bias of we want it reworked. I think where I'm at, though, isn't to do that. It's to pass it more because the only great outcome to me would be that all of a sudden they're a managed species again. And we have all the tools in the science. And I don't think that that's an option in this meeting. And if nothing else, our response to that is approving this measure to some degree to try to pull back some management protection. That's why I've proposed it as is and not with any amendment or without rejecting it and sending it back to be redone. I do have a question. When they said about the director's office was the one that this came from, did they cite any particular reason of why this was suggested?
Yeah, it's based on what I've said, as far as like we promised that we'd look at it, right? So it was 3 years, we looked at it. Then you look at the effects of, like, there wasn't very many that were getting snared. So then you look at that and then take into consideration the public feedback that we've got over the years. So that's where we came to that decision.
Yeah. So just clear, and sorry, you already said that. I must not have totally remembered that.
It's been a long night.
So just to make sure I'm on the logic, their point was, this is affecting such a small percentage of the population, we'd rather take it off because of the risk that it poses to be out there, or just because it wasn't really participated in, so let's just pull it.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel like it's a very effective or underutilized method. And some people have some real fears about some of the consequences. So if we have something out there that's, it's not really effective, and people have fear about it, then why not just remove it? It removes the fear for those people, and it doesn't really affect what we're trying to accomplish.
So having that answer, I think it just kind of cements that my proposal is to approve as noted, mostly because pretty much the only argument that leaves is slippery slope type arguments, which I'd rather just deal with everything that comes in front of us, not hold the line for holding the line's sake.
So I think we'll do Tyson, Bryce, and Amos, and then let's go ahead and call the vote after that. Does that give everybody time to?
I was just going to say I'm withdrawing my friendly motion, but I'm going to have a motion to make as soon as we're done voting on Josh's motion.
Okay, Bryce.
My concern with, I think, the direction it's going is it's already technically illegal. And so you're asking for a new law to be created or therefore looked at and proposed, right? Yeah. And I worry about that. If we try to go that direction, it might go a completely different direction at that point, and we might lose everything we may have achieved. Is kind of so I'm ready to vote.
Okay. All right, Amos, you're our concluding thoughts on this motion, Amos. Give it your all.
So, yeah, first of all, I think Chase didn't really answer that question, what the reasoning why was behind that recommendation of lethal traps targeting the cougars and the lions. I really didn't hear a response that would get me to understand that portion of that section. Because there was no reason why they put it in there other than what he explained. So that really don't tell me much on that portion. So again, I'm kind of confused of what this whole section is, and it's for me, I just kind of feel like we should just take it out. That's just my comment.
Okay, thanks, Amos. All right, let's go ahead and call a vote. So just to reiterate, remind everybody, the motion is to approve as presented, or, approve the recommendation from the division as presented. Let's go ahead and call a vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. Those opposed? 1, 2, 7, 3. And Amos, what's your vote?
I'll just abstain on that at this point. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So the motion carries, passed 7-3. So that's where we're at today. Once again, thanks for everybody coming out for that. We're
I
gonna
have a motion to make.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was
make
looking
a
at the agenda, but
motion.
keep going. Let's keep
What do
going.
we call those breakaway snares? What did you call it? Relaxing lock. I make a motion that we ask the wildlife board to direct the division to look at the legalization of breakaway locks. Unlocking. Relaxing lock or a cable restraint.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we ask the wildlife board to direct the division to consider the legalization of relaxing lock or cable restraints.
And that's seconded by Jared. We'll give it to Jared. Jared Peterson seconded.
Is it legal to ask questions at this point? Could we ask somebody maybe from the trapping alliance there to describe what that is and what would happen in that scenario? Just because I'm not sure I know what a relaxing cable snare is, or what purpose that would serve, or why they were banned in the first place.
And I don't know why they were banned, but the purpose why I'm making this motion is it sounds like that's not a lethal trap, but it's banned outside of the lethal trap thing. We're allowing all these other non-lethal traps. Why would we not allow this lethal trap?
But a question I have is it 100% not lethal? Do we know that? Because see, I can see it being very much lethal, right? Just like a normal snare. Does that sound right?
It's not the best guy to be asking, but that was just an option that we threw out there, other options to prove this.
So my understanding is that the difference between what we're calling a lethal set is that it has a locking mechanism on it, so that the tighter the animal pulls, the tighter, and it locks and it suffocates and kills the animal. A relaxing lock wouldn't do that. If the animal keeps pulling, it could kill it. But if they relax, like if you get a dog that's leash broke and they just sit back, it'll relax and it won't cinch up and choke them out. So I don't know if we consider this in the past. It's a little bit fuzzy in the rule. It's not specifically mentioned in the rules, so I would agree. It's not currently a legal method of take.
And it's, the motion's only asking the
But
division
this
to
is
look
the
at it.
trapping,
Like, we're not
so-
directing them to have to pass that, but look at it, get the trappers in the room, have a conversation.
We could all
Okay,
definitely
yeah,
use a
Jared
conversation.
seconded it, yeah. Are we ready to make a vote on that? All right, we got a motion and a second to direct the division to look at making those certain trap types legal. I'll call it that. She got it, she got it though in her notes. All right, let's go ahead and vote on that. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, any opposed? Oh, in favor?
I agree.
Yeah, Amos, what's your vote?
I agree.
Unanimous. Now that motion passes unanimous. Oh, -1? Oh, 2 abstains. Okay. All right, guys. I was so excited for something unanimous we came together on. Okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks for everybody. I think what I think the takeaway on that one is it sounds like the group wants more people to be communicating, and let's figure out a better way to communicate with all involved. So thanks. All right, let's go to item number 10, and we're just gonna keep going through the agenda here. Chelsea.
All right, stay with me. Still have 4 agenda items here.
We'll stick around. Go ahead, Chelsea. Maybe give it just a second for folks to.
Thank you. Thanks, John. I'm gonna choose not to be offended.
All right, when you're ready, Chelsea, whatever. And remember, Chelsea, we've seen the presentation, so I guess you're just up here for a quick overview. Just keep it pretty brief.
Sure. I'll just really quick. I know everybody's tired. So just a reminder, I was here last year to talk about House Bill 309, and that required folks to have a hunting or fishing license if you were going to access WMAs in the first or second class counties. And then this year.
Hey, Denise, JT, Denise, can you guys go up? You can go.
Sorry, everybody. And then House Bill 30 was passed this year in the 2020 session to make some changes to that after the public had some input on wanting a free option instead of requiring a hunting or fishing license. And so House Bill 30 was passed, and now you have a second option for a free digital access permit to access these properties. And that will be rolled out in a 3-year time frame. So this first fiscal year, it will be those same 30 properties that it already was. And then over the next 2 fiscal years after that, it will apply to all WMAs statewide.
All right, questions from the RAC? I guess, sorry, public comment first.
Yeah, we had a couple people put input on this. One strongly agreed, one neither agreed nor disagreed. No specific comments further.
And this is actually was a hot topic last year, if everybody remembers. So it's just, last year was pretty heavily attended on this issue. Other questions from the RAC? Drew?
I saw that, specific trails were called out, like the Great Western Trail, things that, go through like Timp WMA, and the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. Are those specific call outs, is that really just, has that comprehensive looking at phase 1, everything, or will additions be added if there are through trails through the next 3 phases?
That's a great question. No, I looked at it statewide. That way I wouldn't have to come back and see you in a couple of years. So you will see that there are some trails down in the southern region as well. The majority of them are going to be up in the Wasatch Front just because that's where these established trails are, but we did include one in the southern region. So that's comprehensive for the whole 3-year phase rollout.
Other questions for Chelsea? Questions from the public? Okay. And let's see, we didn't get any public comment cards on this one, or did we? Okay, there's no public comment cards, so I'll bring it back to the RAC for discussion.
For the record, I hate House Bill 30. I wish they would have left it as it was, but it doesn't matter. They passed it, so here we are.
Thanks, Tyson. Any other
Maybe
discussion?
I should vote against it symbolically.
If there's no other discussion, I'll welcome a motion. Or are there other questions for Chelsea before we vote, though? Okay, I'll welcome a motion on this item. Fuck yeah.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
We got a motion to approve as presented by Brock and a second by Bryce. Any questions on the motion? All right, all those in favor, let's go ahead and vote. And Amos?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Okay, passes unanimous. Thanks, Chelsea. We made that really easy for you. Gosh, you got lucky there. All right, next up, Daniel Olson. It's been, Daniel, just for the record, was my boss at one time, so I'm going to recuse myself. If this is a tie vote, I don't know if I can vote against or for him, so Daniel, go for it.
Thanks, Braden. Just some quick background on this topic. This legislative session, there were 2 House bills passed that required consultation with DWR on wind and solar projects. And one of those bills requires us to make an administrative rule on how that consultation process happens. And so that's what my presentation talked about. And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have on that topic.
So listening to it, it sounded like it was potentially good because from what I gathered, and maybe I'm wrong, but it sounded like when one of these, let's say it's going to be proposed, a wind farm, whatever, this is trying to make it to where it feels pretty like optional if you want to do it. If you want to do some kind of like it's not like the protections you get through like the Endangered Species Act or whatever, where you got to do all of these things and you got to document what's out there. But you're welcoming the person who's going to submit for the permit to provide some kind of a wildlife offset or survey or where, what's there, how it could be affected, how they'll mitigate it. And then your office just gets to review and give commentary back before it passes. Is there any teeth to it, or is it mostly just kind of like a cooperative?
Yeah, that's a great question, Josh. So we don't have legislative authority to stop a solar farm from going in. This bill just requires consultation with DWR so we can discuss some of the impacts that might happen from the project, provide recommendations to mitigate those impacts. And then going forward, as the project seeks permitting, they have to provide proof that they consulted with DWR, and they have to have some type of description of how they're going to implement the recommendations we provided. Doesn't require them to do it, just requires them to do those steps. And then on the permitting side, like if the county is someone approving the permit, the bill requires them to consider those wildlife recommendations, but doesn't require them to approve or not approve the project based on them. That help answer your question, Josh?
Yeah, that helps answer. And I like that. I think I like the collaborative nature, and let's just like encourage everybody to try to do the right thing and then see what happens. So I'm pretty supportive of it. I think it's a great idea.
Before we get to other questions from the RAC, let's summarize public comment. Daniel, just stay up there. We'll ask you some more questions, but we're gonna do public comment.
There was none.
There you go. I wanted to make sure we checked the box. So thanks, Danny. All right, more questions for Daniel.
Was there I watched your presentation, but was there a limit on the size of it? I mean, if we're talking guy has a big house and wants to go off grid or something like that, I mean, is there a size limit?
Yeah,
or
so there's a minimum
like a
threshold.
utility type thing or what?
Yeah, they're utility scale projects. And so
Okay.
the limit for the minimum for solar is 1 megawatt. So to kind of help visualize what that is, that's usually 5 to 8 acres of land to generate 1 megawatt. Or most of the time they're much larger than that. And then for wind, it's 10 megawatts, and those projects are kind of oriented different. So it'd probably be hundreds of acres for a wind farm that size.
Have you considered what would happen if there was a proposed improvement or a proposed development? You know, certain species or certain areas, certain habitat types will come with, you know, federal protections, but maybe those aren't known about. If you knew about them at a local level, like what would happen in that scenario, I guess. And that's a hypothetical, so maybe it doesn't matter, but just out of curiosity, you know, if you were to discover that it potentially impacted pygmy rabbits or something, you know, like what would happen in that? Because we're just being consulted, but if you became aware of something, is there, like, what would happen in that scenario?
So if they're protected species involved, the companies will still have to consult with the management agency for those, so Fish and Wildlife Service. But you're saying if the project went in and impacted them without knowledge of it, or?
Right, like just because you're on a local level, I wonder if that would ever be the case where there's a local level, you know, where this site was, now you're being consulted. It's just one more set of eyes looking at that, which I think is a good thing. So maybe it's a comment more than a question, sorry.
Yeah, got it.
I don't think, Dan, we had any public comment on this one. Okay. Any other comment or questions from the RAC? We can keep, this is good discussion. Any other comments or question?
I guess I have a comment if we're at that point. And it has nothing to do with this, but other than, have we considered, you know, just putting solar panels over parking lots instead of fields? I know you can't.
Kill it. Did you
Mine was just a comment that I think this is a step in the right direction. It's starting the conversation. It's getting the ball rolling. So I'm in favor of this.
Yeah, I'll welcome a motion.
I move to pass as presented.
You have a motion by Tyson.
Second by Bryce.
Tyson, Skeen, and with the motion, Bryce seconded, passes presented. Any questions? I guess I should verify before I go for the vote. All right, let's go ahead and vote. Sorry, Brock. All in favor? And Amos?
Yes, Tyler.
Was that a yes? Repeat that one more time, Amos. Sorry, it kind of broke up.
Favor.
In favor. Okay, thank you. Passes unanimous. Thanks, Daniel. All right, item number 12. Let's see, from fisheries. Is Craig here? There he is. Oh, he's in the corner. Yeah. It's past a few of our bedtimes, huh?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Our presentation, for those of you that viewed it, outlines the proposed introductions of white sturgeon in the state of Utah at two waters, Grantsville Reservoir in Tooele County and Hobbs Reservoir in Davis County. We are seeking board approval for a catch and release regulation on both of those populations if the introduction is approved. And that proposed introduction, for those of you that watched last year, me give a presentation, they are part of a broader effort to increase angler opportunity as part of our overall implementation plan for the state of Utah in the aquatic section.
Awesome. We'll go ahead and summarize public comments and then go to questions.
Yeah, we had one comment that was in favor, and then one that just had a question whether it would negatively impact other fish in Grantsville Reservoir specifically.
You want to answer that question? That's the only question I had based on that comment. Is what?
Sure. So they're being stocked into the reservoir at approximately 6 to 12 inches in length. When we start seeing impacts of sturgeon as a piscivore, as a fish-eating predator, they're going to be at larger sizes. And if we ever identified that as an issue, we would work to manage that population of white sturgeon accordingly through regulations that would not be catch and release. Right now, we're only stocking 50 fish into each water body. We want to try to give them a chance, and we don't envision them as predatory at this point on any of the other fish in those reservoirs. If they get to be 6 feet long, great. Then we'll deal with that problem when we get there.
At what size do white sturgeon become predatory on other fish?
It's going to probably depend. I would guess, and this is a guess, that when those fish get to be about 2 feet, 3 feet long, that we'll start to see maybe some depredation. But they're also, they're eating fish carcasses on the bottom. And for those of you that fish Grantsville, it's a situation where if you're fishing in the summertime, you're fishing it from shore, and you're letting any of the fish that you caught go, there's probably some carcasses on the bottom. I would suspect that they go after those first.
Why sturgeon?
Sturgeon was an opportunity afforded to us by a conservation partner and by a grower in Utah. It was not on our top of top lists, but as part of our implementation plan, we are exploring the use of alternate species like Sawguy or Sauger in the state. We just don't have access to those right now. And this was an opportunity that presented itself to us via the grower, via the partner. And we figured we'd take advantage of it in places where they would be able to be safely examined to see if we could also use them in other waters in the future.
Do you anticipate sturgeon becoming a viable sport fishing species in the state of Utah?
That's what we're trying to figure out.
But if your best guess, is that a fair question?
So viable sport species from our perspective would be one that could naturally reproduce and one that we wouldn't have to continually augment through stocking, ideally, right? That's where we're at. In these systems, no, that viability is not there. They're not going to be able to travel upstream into large tributaries and reproduce, and they're probably not going to grow to sizes seen elsewhere in their native range, as I described in the presentation. It's an opportunity for us to create a fishery where white sturgeon are something that people will catch incidentally, in addition to some of the other species that they are tacking into at Grantsville and Hobbs. We don't view it as us creating a white sturgeon destination fishery in Utah anytime soon. Especially when we're talking about a species that is, capable of living as long as they do, and not growing quickly.
Last question.
Sure.
Completely unrelated to the sturgeon, but I wish we put fishing items first, just for the record, because we could have had this conversation 3 hours ago. It would have been really fun.
I probably would have fresher. Just let you know a little.
Me too. Me too. Any thoughts on putting golden trout up? Any more golden trout up high and like hunting cutthroats down low?
They're on our list of, suggestions brought forward by the regional biologists and managers. As we run into years like this, if they become more commonplace, we're definitely going to have to think about managing our fisheries differently. Like I said, I mentioned in that presentation last year, no species is off the table aside from those that are the nasties, the snakeheads of the world, the burbot of the world. I mentioned Sawguy, Sauger. We've talked about other catfish species, but again, it's critical that because of our native fish concerns, that we manage safely.
Sure.
And that limits what we can do and where we can do it.
Yeah.
When you look at the Virgin River drainage and you look at the Colorado River drainage, we have 2 recovery programs that eat up 2/3 of the state right out of the chute. So we need to start wrapping our minds around sterile fish, and whether we can make sterile versions of some of these species we're talking about.
Because I would love to further the discussion on those 2 species. We can take that offline, not tonight, but I would love to be a part of those discussions.
Absolutely. We're like I said, we're entertaining a lot of options at this point in time because things are changing and our ability to manage with what we've managed with traditionally is becoming more difficult.
And acknowledging that Lahontan cutthroats are native. We did use Lahontan cutthroats to save a fishery.
Hey, that was a comment, Tyson. No, just kidding.
Right. In a time where it feels like we have gone back to mostly natives and we're trying to reduce non-native species in the state, this feels, and not only that, but then bringing in a fish or a species that likely isn't going to thrive and certainly won't become what its potential is because it's in a non-native body of water, a non-native tributary, non-native region.
Sure.
Why so different? Why are we, it feels an awful lot like we're putting these in to give some people a chance to catch a sturgeon when they could go to Idaho and catch one. And everyone in the world knows that and understands that we don't have sturgeon here because they were never here and they probably won't do well here. And we're admitting that they're not going to do well. They'll probably never reach sexual maturity and spawn.
Mm-hmm.
It feels a lot like spinning wheels. That's question mark.
No, I think, think of it more like this, that if sturgeon do well in waters that are not doing well with trout populations, And we have a grower in the state that's able to provide us with a comparable size fish we could potentially manage with sturgeon in those waters. And we'd like to at least explore whether or not that's a possibility. And if it is, it gives us one more crane in our Crayola box to write with in the future. And again, we need to figure out what works and what doesn't work. This is an opportunity for us to use these two waters as almost like a laboratory to assess that. We recognize the fact that, yeah, we're never going to give people the opportunity they can be afforded by traveling 6 hours north. Absolutely, 100%. But does it give us an opportunity to allow people to catch a species of any sort in a water that may be flagging, period, for any of the other species that we traditionally manage with? If that makes sense.
That sounds good. We've got a couple of public comments here. So,
Can I ask one?
yeah, go ahead. Sorry, thanks.
Are rainbow trout native to Grantsville Reservoir?
That'd be a no.
Okay.
Yeah. And Grantsville Reservoir isn't native to the landscape either. So you go all the way back to that.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to bring that up, but yes, I do live by Grantsville Reservoir, and it is a very strange looking object out in the sagebrush flat.
But I mean, it really was, built out of whole cloth and gives people an opportunity that they otherwise in Tooele County would not be afforded. I mean, we get settlement, Grantsville, and Delta.
Yes, Tooele County needs more fishing opportunities for sure.
Trust me.
So if you can get some more opportunities out there, we're all about it.
We will do our best.
Before we get to public comments, we have a couple of more questions.
One more.
JT.
If they get to that size, is the catch and release like a non-take? What about the eggs? Could those be harvested if you were to catch one, or are we going to make that not legal? 'Cause
Well,
I
we'll
think
find
there's-
out in 25 years.
Yeah.
Sexual maturity at 25.
Yeah.
So
it could be a while.
that's not even on our radar right now as far as that. It's more about, will we see growth? Will we see them do well in a small body of water? And can we use them as a tool moving forward as an alternate choice for us to make in some waters that are flagging for other management effort?
You feel like you're aware enough of the bodies of water they're going into that if there was an impact or a change that you would pick up on it, that you would notice that if they did impact other species or water turbidity or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about the impacts to the existing fish populations?
I'd just say, like, if this was a test to see if they're a viable option to move to other water bodies, I'm just asking, do you feel like you've got a good enough handle on the two water bodies now that if there were to be a change, you would pick up on that change?
I think so. I think with stocking 50 into water bodies that are the size of Hobbs and the size of Grantsville, that again, it serves as a good laboratory. If I could have done it, I might have kind of spread them out across multiple community waters that had a little bit of depth so that we can use those and had more replicates, if you will, to use science and figure out what's what. But those two laboratories, so to speak, are safe places for us to take a gander. I think that we'll be able to figure out what's what.
Any questions from the public first? If not, go ahead, Jared, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of an angler and I have caught sturgeon in Idaho. And it's a lot of fun. I don't think these would ever get big enough to be a lot of fun. But okay, so I mean, the biology, I want to talk about this because it seems like a lot of times we talk about, throwing fish in and seeing if they'll survive and not thrive, or, I want them to thrive and be successful. I mean, my understanding is that sturgeon are bottom feeders, and everywhere that I'm aware that they're at is, a river or rocky bottom. I don't have any idea. These lakes that are going in, I guess one of them's in our region, the other one's not, maybe. I mean, you've got lakes that, have been stirred up with carp and all that, bottom feeders. I don't know. Do sturgeon do that? Because I'm only aware of, like hard bottom rivers. I mean,
so
are these lakes murky on the bottom? Is this going to cause other issues? I mean, with these being bottom feeders, stirring that up, like a Utah lake and carp.
Yeah, they're not going to do what carp do at all. That they're not herbivores that are out rooting and ripping vegetation out and doing that type of thing. No.
Okay, so I guess I'm back to the biology. Okay, so we want to offer a fishing opportunity, which I'm all for.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess, is this the best species? I mean, is there
No,
a reason that we're putting it in for this?
Like,
or-
like I said,
like you
as
said.
far as like on our list, it was not on our list.
Okay.
But it was an opportunity to do what we identified and I presented to you all last year, which is diversify our fisheries. That's first and foremost. Our anglers really appreciate throwing something out in the water and not knowing what they're going to get. They appreciate the diversity of those opportunities. This is a way for us to tack into that need among our angling public. At the same time, do what I was talking about before, exploring a species. So it's kind of serving multiple masters at the same time. These are two waters where the species diversity is, I'll call it somewhat lacking relative to some of our other waters. Again, this bumps that up as well. And again, gives people an opportunity to throw a bobber out, throw power bait out, throw whatever they're going to throw out and see what they're going to get. And if they latch into one of these, then it's a conversation and it's a way to get people energized about fishing in general, because it is something new. It is something different. It is diverse.
Okay, so, few more questions. So say it didn't go well, say negative side effect, whatever.
Sure.
I mean, is this something that can be remediated right away? How big is it? How big are these lakes? Is this a?
So they don't reproduce until they're 25. We anticipate that we would see any negative effects before that reproduction would ever take place, not that it would in these two water bodies. If we saw impacts to the population, to the system in any way, shape, or form, or we get pushback from the angling public that they didn't want them in there, it's pretty easy for us to get them out of there, either through regulations or mechanical removal.
Okay, I just, that's, and I guess I don't know what the criteria would be for failure, right? Where that
Again,
line is.
the three things that I can think of right off the bat are impacts to habitat, which you mentioned, impacts to the existing fish populations that are currently in the water bodies. And then the third would be just a general kind of malaise or pushback that we would get from the public, like, we don't want these things here. And hopefully our white paper that we developed a few years back for this species, when we were looking at it for a different reason from a private aquaculture standpoint, we assessed the potential impacts to habitat. We assessed the potential impacts to other species. What we would really be focused on here, and hopefully we get that through the public process, is some feedback on whether or not people dislike them and don't want them. And if they dislike them and don't want them, then we incorporate that into what we consider when we make the decision as to whether to stock them or not. We haven't stocked them yet. So
yeah, okay.
This is just, if we stock them, would you all support that catch and release reg for that population?
All right. Ken Strong, he's fallen asleep back there. I just saw him bob his head a few times. Ken, let's have you come up, followed by Troy Justice. He wasn't sleeping. I'm just kidding, Ken.
Ken Strong, representing Sportsmen for Fish and Wildlife. First of all, I'd like to thank the division for considering a new variety of fish in the state. They're thinking outside of the box, and I think it's great. Sturgeon, these white sturgeon came out of the Snake River originally. The eggs did. They have been reproducing in beaver. They are bottom feeders. They're just giant suckers with no teeth. They're not going to catch any fish. They're not going to do anything like that, except for they're going to eat the dead fish that the fishermen lose. I think it's a great idea. We've looked for a trophy fish in Utah for years. They came up with the Colorado pike minnow, which they couldn't put in because of the federal wildlife. They were protected, but this is one that they can use as a trophy fish. They're in private ponds right now around Utah. They are growing up to about 6 feet long in about 3 years in private ponds. So they're doing really well, and I think they'd do good in Utah. And I thank the division for thinking outside of the box and coming up with this. Thanks.
All right, Troy, you get the last public comment of today's meeting.
Only need about 20 minutes. We'll be all right.
No, since Ken represented us at WM, I'm gonna represent myself. I love the idea. Sometimes it feels like we get a little stagnant in our fishing world in the state, and we got some great fishing, but this concept of bringing something new in is really exciting. I'm a very avid angler and excited about this. And in fact, on the wish list, I'd love to see Chinook, landlocked Chinook in the state. So put that on there. So I just want a point of clarification, skip back a little bit. It was a comment was made that that cougar trapping thing was brought before the ag working group. It's the ag wildlife working group. I sit on that. It's made up of sportsman's group, whatever. It was not a discussion. We were told what was going to happen. So just a clarification there. Thank you.
Thanks, Troy. All right, let's bring it back to the RAC. Just a side comment. 10 years ago, I was in a meeting at the governor's office, and they talked about what if we brought sturgeon into Utah? And it's kind of funny to hear now. We're here 10 years later, the idea is there. So that's how long it takes sometimes.
Hey, Craig, one quick question. Are there crawdads in those two bodies of water?
Yes.
Okay. Because they eat those, right? That would be a potential
the size
food
we're going to
source.
stock them. They're going to be feeding on the bottom. Of course,
Yeah.
that's what they do, but they're going to be seeking out any sort of mollusks that we've got in those water bodies or crustaceans.
Yeah.
So, and I'd love to see where he's raising 6 foot long sturgeon. I haven't seen that, and don't expect that. We're not setting up false expectations for the public. If they grow that big, great. But I don't want to have people get mad at me if they don't get to 6 feet. So.
Oh, guys. Other comments or discussion items from the RAC? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and call for a motion.
I got a motion. Oh, you want to make it? I would make a motion that we pass the catch and release regulation as presented.
I'll second it.
All right, we got a motion by Tyson Skeen to pass as presented and a second by Josh. All those in favor, raise your hand. I shouldn't have voted, sorry. And any Amos, I didn't see where you're at. Amos, where are you at?
I'm in favor.
Motion passes unanimous. We have one information item here that Mark Hadley's been sitting here. Josie took off. So Mark, do you want to give us a quick?
Mark Farmer.
I'm Mark Farmer. I said Hadley, sorry. Yeah, Mark Farmer. We can ask any questions. Otherwise, we'll go, but it's about Loafer and then any other.
I would have put on a dress shirt if I'd known I was going to be presenting. So Josie had to leave. So it's just the management plan for Loafer Mountain WMA. It's about a 12,400 foot or 12,400 acre WMA in Utah County. Mostly really remote, very limited access, but there's lots of cool animals on there. There's elk, there's bighorn sheep, there's mountain goats, lots of deer. It's a cool property, but limited public access. And that's good and bad. So anyway, and one road and 2 trails on the property is about all there is. And just writing the management plan for that, just to maintain what we have, control our weed population, manage the wildlife. And that's kind of what the HMP is about. It was purchased in 73 in the early 80s when we got those pieces from Sidla. So I just wish we would have bought more land so we'd had decent public access. So there is public access across private land on roads we don't manage that are very dangerous. And if you want to go up those roads on an ATV, that's up to you, but you might not make it. So anyway, that's kind of how it works. Any questions?
I just say that by code, we're supposed to have a management plan for all of our wildlife management areas, and part of that code we have to bring it before the Habitat Council, the RAC, and RDCC. And so, if you guys have any feedback on that plan, it is informational, but yeah, we would like to get your feedback.
Yeah, any feedback, you guys, if you've seen the plan, you're welcome to comment on anything.
Yeah, the only comment I had with Josie was just more emphasis on trying to acquire. There was already some language about trying to get access, but just making that like an action item of, making. But we can't vote, right? But I think
We could put that in the habitat management strategies. Try to make. That's a good point. We'll add a few sentences there about acquiring
right of ways, access. Yeah.
We got a CWMU on the east side, and we got the relief mine, which is a nightmare to deal with, on the north, and private land in the south, and a little bit of forest service. But there's There's really no access. It's rugged terrain, so. But if you're, if you want to hunt and you want to walk in there, it's a plus. So it's a lot of walking.
It's a big mountain. Okay.
I'll make that addition though. That's a good point.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. All right. Any other items not on the agenda? If not, I'll welcome a motion to adjourn. Motion, I'll second, adjourned. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody.